today. Let's see. Figure this out. Maybe a tripod. Oh my gosh, my tripod fell apart. How much does that suck? It sucks a little bit. I'll figure it out. This is a weird angle. Let me see. So, today, I made myself dinner. Since I'm getting on pretty early, I figured I could hang out and tell you stories. I have some weird stories from my childhood where I used to go to like a weird school, and I was thinking about this thing that happened years ago because I entered a scholarship contest, and I was thinking about like demon possession because remember I read that Tim Cahill's story a couple weeks ago about the cult, and I used to go to a young earth creationist school, and we used to have preachers come like all the time and preach at us, right? So I had this like very real fear of like demon possession when I was a kid, right? It looked a little weird, but so I remembered this story, and I entered a scholarship with this story, and I posted it on TikTok. So preachers used to come and preach at us like twice a week. Hi, welcome. People are starting to come in. So, hi, everybody's coming in. I remembered a story from my childhood that was kind of funny, and I was going to tell it. So I used to have a very real fear of demon possession, and I remembered one time, like, I went over to my boyfriend's house. I was like 15 or something, or like 14. Hi, Jordan Hicks. Yes, you can ask me something, but first I'm going to tell this story. Okay, so I went over to my boyfriend's house. I was like 15. And we watched these movies. It was like a Christian movie about demon possession, and I went to this young earth creationist school. And so that was like a fear that I had. And then after the movie was over, his dad like sat us down and like gave us a very serious talking to about like the dangers of demon possession and the kind of stuff that like could open you up and make you vulnerable to being possessed by demons. So the kind of stuff that my school used to say would open you up to being possessed by demons is like if you listen to the wrong kind of rock music, or like if you drink alcohol, or you do drugs, or like if you dance, like all the fun stuff basically, you could end up being possessed by demons. And if one person in your household isn't saved by Jesus, then they're vulnerable. Like you can make your whole house vulnerable to being possessed by demons. So like I don't know if you ever saw the movie Poltergeist, but that was a movie that like really scared me when I was young because I don't know, you ever just like be afraid that you're going to open up your closet one day and there's going to be like this vortex to the nether realms gonna suck you in, or gonna send out like some kind of eldritch horror to terrorize your family. Anyway, so I went home. My parents picked me up, and they had kind of been out having fun that night. They went to some kind of event with their friends, and they had been drinking. Earlier that day, my family had fixed up some stuff in the kitchen, but I wasn't thinking about that. So my we park in the garage. My parents like walk out the garage. They go into the house ahead of me. And like I don't know what I was doing. I was probably grabbing a soda out of the like garage fridge or something. So I walk into the kitchen. My dad is standing there with a maniacal like look on his face, like smiling wide. And all of the burners on the stove are turned up to their highest setting. And in my head, I'm like, "Oh my fucking God, we're possessed. The house is possessed. Oh my God, it's happening." But then he just kind of looks at me like I'm weird, and he's like, New stove, Michelle. We just put it in today. Isn't that awesome? And I just like, oh my God, I couldn't believe that he would joke with me like that. I seriously thought that my house was possessed by demons. So yeah. But like, Ghost Phantom says, I was afraid, but now I fear no demon. Guess if you believe in Jesus, you know nothing will happen. Yeah, but like, even people who don't believe in Jesus, like, there are plenty of people who don't believe in Jesus and they don't get possessed by demons. I think it's just a fear that certain sects of Christianity use to instill like control and fear in people. And like, I don't think that's right. Like, I don't, whatever you believe is fine, but I don't think it's cool to put that kind of fear into young children. I have nothing against people with religious beliefs of any kind, but like, using fear to control people is like not cool. We don't have to talk about religion, but I just thought that was a funny story. There were also some very cool people at my school. Like, people that were just very loving and chill and like encouraging. So like, yeah. Someone says 77 Icky says everyone uses fear, honestly. No, that's not true. The best company I ever worked for, the best job I ever had, they did not use fear as a tactic at all. It was amazing. It was the coolest job I ever had. It was based on internal motivation. So like, who's the person that you truly are, what excites you on a deep level? And that's like where people find like their true soul's purpose. And I wish people embraced that more. Like, I get it. Like, fear is a part of life. You can't escape it. But if you focus on it too much, like, it's going to bring about stuff in your life that you don't want. And I think if you focus more on, like, what excites you and what makes you happy, like, I think that's, like, a way better way to live your life, 77 Icky says, where is this job and are they giving away monies? Well, they went bankrupt. But it was amazing. For 5 years, I had the best job. It was so cool. I have faith that, like, I know what it feels like now to be in an environment and community like that. And so that is what I'm always searching for in like, other people, is, like, that feeling again. The kind of people who want to bring out the best in you, and, like, those kinds of communities are, like, worth their weight in gold, and I wish that there were more of them, You know what? 77 Icky says, I knew it, good things never last, but there were 500 people at that company, and those people, when the company dissolved, they went out into the community, and they went out to other places in the country, and they're gonna spread that vibe. And, like, I know it's not all for nothing, because I worked with so many of those people, and they were so cool. They're gonna bring that love to other places, and it spreads like a virus, I think. Like, when you're around the right people, your nervous system chills out so much. It makes everything better. I really do. Maybe I am delusional, but I think Delulu is the Salulu. So. I mean, everybody has a right to believe whatever they want to believe. So, like, excuse me, why wouldn't you want to believe that there's a place out there where your values are, like, shared and embraced and emulated, Sometimes fear is necessary, says bringing back the empire. If there's a predator waiting for prey outside of the security of the village, you'd want someone to warn you or instill fear of danger and you'd avoid leaving you on your own. Yeah, maybe, but like, I feel like that makes it worse sometimes if you spend more time fearing the predator than like understanding them, then like I've been in a situation where people believed that and it made my life worse. Like we spent more time fighting and being scared than like solving problems. I think sometimes the letting people warn you or fear the predator, you like sometimes you end up missing out on a lot of stuff because you're too focused on the predator instead of like your own life. You know? Ex Voyera says, can you read between the lines? I can. I often choose not to. Because sometimes I find the energy it takes to read between the lines really annoying. So, like, sometimes I find it harder to focus on myself and my own life when there's people who expect you to read between the lines a ton. No, I'm not oblivious. I just choose to do what I want anyway. Because, again, if you start reading between the lines, you can get so absorbed in what other people are not saying that they want that, like, you can lose yourself entirely in reading between the lines. I think if you care about someone, they've demonstrated that, like, they're gonna be there for you in your life and be helpful, then, like, learning to read between the lines, yeah, sure, you can. But, like, there have been a lot of times in my life where it's been a total waste of energy to read between the lines. And I've started to realize the more I focus on myself instead of reading between the lines, it's been a way better investment of my energy. So, like, I don't know. Johnny Sin says, do you keep it hairy? I mean, don't you see how much hair I have? Don't we all? Johnny Sin says, you're mad cool. You're mad cool. I think you guys are cool. Let me see. Okay, so, like, another story from my young earth creationist school. I used to have a history teacher that used to say such things like, the Bible says slavery is okay. Slave owners were actually very hospitable to their slaves in southern United States, like circa 1800s. And he used to say things like, the worst thing the United States ever did was to give women the vote. These are things that happened at my young earth creationist school. Not everyone was this bad. But I also had, like, some of the best science, like, some great science teachers. They would dance around topics like evolution, but they were, like, super cool and encouraging. We were not allowed to talk about things like evolution, but, like, I know it's like that in other places in the United States, but it's always been kind of weird that this happened in California, in, like, Los Angeles, and a lot of people don't have a hard time believing it when I tell them. Because I know that in textbooks in, like, Oklahoma and Texas, they purposely take stuff like that out of the public textbooks, which boggles my mind. So I'm curious, when you went to school, did you learn about stuff like evolution, or was it, like, intelligent design? Or was it, like, in public schools outside of California? What do you guys learn? How is it explained to you? I wonder about this. Bringing back the empire says only the uber wealthy had the means for slave ownership, and some slave owners were hospitable to their slaves. Still, even saying stuff like that, like, if you say stuff like that about slave owners, like, the implication that you think slave ownership was ever okay, like, even in the context of history, like, I know it was a different time, but, like, it's still, like, really not chill to say now. Like, the idea, like, the way he said it implies that slave ownership should never have been abolished. In the context of history, like, I don't know. It just really did not feel okay. I don't feel like we got a great representation of Black history. There were other things that they were very cool about at that school, though. It was very multicultural. White kids were in the minority at the school that I went to. Oh, someone asked, what are you eating? I'm eating a salad with cucumbers, carrots, chicken, and green leaf lettuce and bitchin sauce. Oh. Anyway, so the school I went, the downside was some very outmoded beliefs about race, but also in practice, they were pretty multicultural. And like, I heard that this is something that the Roman Empire was really good at too, and it's why the Roman Empire lasted so long. So like, we used to have this thing called the Heritage Day, and like everybody would bring food and wear like traditional clothes from their ethnicity. And like, I think only like 10 or 20% of the kids in each class were white. So it was like mostly, I think the vast majority were like um or like Filipino, Japanese, Chinese, like a lot of different, or Korean, a lot of different Asian ethnicities. And then there was like about the same amount of white and Black kids. There were a lot of Nigerian immigrants. Um, and so it was really cool when we had like Heritage Day, everyone would like share like about their culture, and that was one of the cooler things about the school that I went to. So then I learned later that the Roman Empire, apparently this is how they were able to keep conquering like different areas of the world and like incorporate different cultures into their culture. And that's what made like Roman culture so rich, apparently, is that they would like just incorporate a whole bunch of different stuff about all these different cultures, and then the conquered countries would like tolerate it a lot better because they could still have their way of life. And sometimes I feel like this is like what the United States needs to do now. So we're pretty bad with imperialism, and there's a lot of hostility towards like Middle Eastern ethnicities right now. And like, I feel like there's a huge need to like figure out what like drinks and dances and foods that go on in like Iraqi and like Syrian culture, and just like they need like an Iraqi or Syrian fast food restaurant that everybody can like take part in or something, or you get like kebabs and like, I don't know. This is like on my mind a lot lately. Anyway, um so, oh my god, baklava. I love baklava. But like, we don't yet have like a Middle Eastern pop star, unless I'm kind of culturally illiterate, so maybe we do. But like, I don't know, we haven't reached that level yet, I guess. But like, I don't know, there's so much more I could say. But like, bringing back the empire says the issue with Middle Eastern culture is the almost ingrained sense of Islam being a part of the culture. I don't think Islam is a problem. I think it's like certain extremist Islam beliefs that we, in the United States, we like kind of, we believe all Islamic beliefs are like extremist, but when you look at it, it's not that different from Judaism or Christianity. Like it's based all around the same stuff, like a lot of the similar beliefs. But like when we look at it, we think it's extremist, but it's really not that different. I mean, I'm not that educated about it, but like most Islamic people I've met in my life, they're just regular people, right? They just like care about their families or like their relationships and like they want to have fun and they want to study and they want to work and it's like they're just the same as everybody else, you know? Like maybe it's a little different. Like I've met Islamic guys that wouldn't shake my hand because they don't touch women, but that's like that's how my school was growing up. Like boys and girls weren't allowed to touch each other either and they're not Islamic, they're Christians. And like there are sects of Christianity that are extreme. Like where I went to school, there was no drinking, no dancing, no rock music. Like that's way more extreme than a lot of the Islamic people I've ever met. So like I don't know. Extremism is in every religion, not just the ones from other countries. Like there's extremism here too. The carrot just went flying. I don't know. Someone says 77 Icky says, man, California is weird. It is. California is filled with so many different cultures, and there are places where the culture mix is cool, and there are places where there's a lot of like tension between different people. So like I lived in East County, San Diego, and there's a lot of like there's a lot of Iraqi people that are like really they were rich when they left the Middle East and they come here and they start businesses. And there's a big community of them there and there's some hostility with the like the white people that live in East County because they're kind of taking over this place to live that they used to feel was their area. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like people need a place to live. But like you can feel the tension because things change. And it's often hard for people to grapple with changes unless it's fun. So that's like, I wish that when there's a culture clash, that like, I feel like we need to do more partying and like having fun with each other. And it can diffuse the tensions. But often we don't do that, you know? That's just my stupid opinion. Bendaiho 4119 says, why do you strike me as a woman who picks her nose with her tongue? God, the questions I get in chat are so colorful. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't reach my nostril with my tongue. That's a disgusting question. Sometimes I appreciate just how disgusting you guys are. Humans after my own heart. Asking those hard-hitting questions. 77 Icky says, nah, cultural sharing is important, but the problem is we have to get past our prejudices. Totally. Like, this is one thing I love about Southern California is if you want to go to an event and like listen to Persian music, you can go do that. And like at the same time, like people don't do that enough, but sometimes there's that weird feeling of am I invading? Do I belong there? Like but usually people love to have you share in their culture. Like Okay, so like sometimes I wish there was less fear around cultural appropriation because most of the time cultures want to share their culture with you, but a lot of people are afraid because we don't want to be cultural appropriators. But most of the time, they don't think it's appropriation if you're genuinely wanting to like understand and share. But like it's just there's like certain types of people who take it to an extreme and it's like a little disrespectful and then it becomes appropriation, but like I think most of the time like it's pretty chill. I think I used to be really afraid of cultural appropriation and then like at this point I just want to have fun and like take part in other stuff. 77 Icky says I came from visiting India and I fucks with the Punjabi people. They can dance. Yes, they can. Okay, so like I was in a beauty pageant. I was in a couple beauty pageants when I was like a teenager. It was like the Miss America divisions, like teen division. And like that was the first time I saw Indian dance. There was this other girl that did, I think it was a Northern Indian dance. And like I don't know if that's where it started. It was like my first exposure to like oh, I guess that's not where it started. It was just furthered my exposure to it. Bringing Back the Empire says, sure, the common person has the ambitions to pursue a normal life involving personal and familial successes, but religious leaders wish to turn their own ideas and beliefs into law. Yeah, that's something we're going through right now. Is like, we kind of are along a trend of like a theocracy. We have been for some time now. And I get it because Christians are like really scared about losing their like ability to practice their religion, but like sometimes I feel like that fear is a little unfounded because like Christian churches are some of the most protected in the country. Marco Samella asks, parli Italiano? Non molto bene. Not very good. I need to practice. 77 Icky says, have you seen the America's Got Talent Indian girl group? They are awesome. No, what are they called? Okay, I'm gonna eat my salad. Okay, so I'm eating a salad with cucumber, carrots, chicken, and bitchin sauce. I don't know if you've ever had bitchin sauce, but it's like, it's made of the like almond slop that's like, it's like a byproduct of some kind of other almond product, like almond milk or something. Like when they make almond milk, they squeeze out the almonds into the milk and like run water through it and it makes almond milk. And then the result is this like almond paste. It's like really nutritional. And they put a bunch of flavors in it. And then I use it as like a salad dressing, or I dip my vegetables in it. It's really good. Joe Rogan says Christians have been freaking out since Merry Christmas became Happy Holidays. Yes, they totally have. They totally have. It's like, can we just chill? Because there's other cultures here besides our own. Like, we can embrace them. We don't have to freak out. Like, everybody's chill. Bringing Back the Empire says, I'm a Christian. That's chill. Are you a chill Christian? I like chill Christians. So, like, Hunter the Axolotl says, why don't you read my text? I don't know. Maybe I missed it. Why don't you ask your question again? I'm sorry if I missed your question. Ask me again. Bringing Back the Empire says, don't care if you say Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas. I sometimes say Happy Holidays if I know you're not religious or Christian. Thanks for being a chill one. I appreciate people like you. So, like, I generally, like, most of my life have thought of myself as, like, an atheist, but, like, then at some point, some weird stuff started happening, and, like, I heard this report on, I started thinking about the concept of God, and, like, in graduate school, we talked about, like, spirituality, and, like, there is actually some evidence that was shown to us of, like, things we consider paranormal. There's actually some beginning evidence coming in academic realms that discuss things like spirituality, but they're very hard to explain. So they're very, like, reluctant to get into it too much. But then I started thinking about religiosity and, like, the benefits that it has on people's minds when they have some sort of faith. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to rethink my beliefs. So, like, I started, like, thinking about, like, the concept of awe and wonder, which is, like, one of the core components of religiosity that makes people happy, right? So, like, if you have a sense of awe and wonder about the world, like something bigger than you that's unexplainable, apparently this is what makes people, like, legitimately happy and peaceful on a core level. So, like, um, I started thinking about, like, what makes me feel those things, and, like, I don't know if you know, like, Cosmos, like the documentary series that Carl Sagan did, and then later, what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson did a remake, and, like, that was a series that, like, started that whole feeling of, like, awe and wonder about the world in my heart. And then I started going on these adventures with, like, I don't know, like, an ex-boyfriend that I had, and we would go to the redwoods, we would go to different places in nature, and, like, um just kind of experience a bunch of different cool natural stuff, and that, like, triggered that feeling. Sometimes people call it a glimmer, or, like, something that makes you feel awe and wonder about the world. Like, we would go, like, there was this place we went where the monarch butterflies nest, and there was just, like, hundreds of monarch butterflies, like, just chilling in the trees. Or, like, I don't know, we would go to this, like, secluded river, or, like, this Northern California town that was just beautiful and tons of trees and stuff, or, like, you know. So, like, 77 Icky says blasphemy brain tickles. That is me. I'm full of blasphemous thoughts, but I don't know. You obviously, your mileage may vary. You have to figure out what's going to be, you know, a driving force of happiness in your own life, but, like, this is just my stupid opinions about the world. Anyway, so I started exploring, like, nature, and then, like, the feeling that I got in nature was, like, that feeling of awe and wonder. And then, like, that's the feeling that I want in my life. So, like, how am I going to expand that feeling, right? So, like, because that's the feeling that apparently gives people a sense of happiness. And I don't know, I can confirm I found it very helpful. Ghost Phantom says, you ain't never been in real nature. Yeah, I mean, like, probably. Like, what do you consider real nature? Like, I've definitely never been in the Amazon rainforest, and I wish I had, because that's, like, pretty real. Oh, yeah. I mean, lions, tigers, and bears. Like, of course not, but... Oh my gosh. I'm just moving around. Okay. Yeah, I've never been accosted by a black bear, for sure. Like, I've never been attacked by a lion. But, like, most people haven't. Most of us live in cities. We're very detached from real nature. But for most people, like, going on a hiking trail is gonna give you, like, a pretty good feeling of being connected to nature. Like, that calm that washes over you when you're just surrounded by lush greenery, you know? Like, I mean, like, bears could kill you, but a lot of wildlife is really scared of humans. Like, most of them don't wanna, like, approach you unless they're starving for food and they're gonna die if they don't eat. Like, most of the time, they want easier pickings than humans. Have I really been eating the salad for 25 minutes? It's because I talk so much. I totally have. I've got another treat. I've got a lot of snacks. 99, Joe Rogan says 99% of our evolution, we worship something. Feeling good worshiping is in our neurology. Yeah. I don't argue that. Because, like, okay, have you ever looked at the research on superstitious behavior? I believe, I believe it was Watson that did this research. So, like, he had a whole bunch of pigeons. No, it was Skinner. It was Skinner because he put them in Skinner boxes. So he had a whole bunch of pigeons and he would reward them at like different intervals and watch their behavior. So like so he looked at superstitious behavior or like that's like religious behavior. So he put the pigeons in a Skinner box and then he would randomly, like completely randomly reward them. And what he saw was the evolution of like these really elaborate behaviors like dances, like like if you put a pigeon in a box and give them a lever and they learn that a treat will come out when they press a lever, they'll just learn to press the lever. It's a really simple behavior. But if you don't show the pigeon what kind of behavior they'll be rewarding, if the reward is completely random, they will make up in their heads like whatever kind of behavior um like triggers the treat to be put out. So like what they found is like when treats are released randomly, the pigeons would like think in their heads, okay, what happens is I need to spin around 3 times and peck the right wall and then jump, and then the treat will come out. And then, like, over time, their dances got more and more elaborate. So they would just compulsively do these weird dances because they believed that's what would trigger the treat to come out. And so I think this happens in humans too. Some research shows that, like, with men and sexual behavior, this is the case too. So, like, men can end up getting very superstitious about like what is lucky and what's going to help them get lucky, like wearing the same pair of socks or like, you know. I think that's really funny. Okay, so I also have, oh, I forgot to eat my bread. Okay, I'm gonna eat some bread. Anyway, those are things I think a lot about. I think a lot about behavior. 77 Icky says octopuses are my favorite. They smart. They totally are. When you think of that video of like octopuses opening a jar to eat the crab inside. Octopuses are so smart. It makes me wonder what the ocean would be like if they didn't die right after they mated. Bringing Back the Empire says wolves being pack animals require the leadership of an alpha, so the simple solution to fending off wolves would be to challenge their current alpha and establish dominance over the pack. I thought that study showed that only happens when wolves are in captivity. When they're in captivity and they're afraid, they establish dominance hierarchies. And that's not the case in the wild. It's just a familial group with like a father and a mother. I don't really like hierarchies unless there's like really good leadership. I tend to try to avoid hierarchies altogether. Okay, so later I have this Filipino baked good. You guys know about ensaymada? This is an ube ensaymada. I'm obsessed with them because like it's like a pastry, but it's covered in butter and cheese. And it's got like I don't know if you can see, it's got purple yam in it. It's got ube, and ube is like my favorite thing. And cheese is also one of my favorite things. So it's like if you had like a raspberry cream cheese strudel or something, it's like that, but purple yam instead of the raspberry. And then you cover it in cheese. And like, okay, these are giant. And if you ever have a Valerio's bake shop near you, you should definitely go get one because it's $4.50 and it's like 8 times this big. This is like a 1/8 wedge that I cut out of it. $4.50. They're so cheap. They're so yummy. You could have breakfast for a week if you got one of these. And they're so soft. But I'm gonna eat it after I crunch on a few of these flamin' hot Cheetos chicharrones, which are like my favorite chip snack ever. There's a liquor store near my house, and the guy who runs it is like the coolest. Like he's so thoughtful and intelligent and just like he's so good at like sometimes we have talks when I go in there and he's so smart. He can talk about politics without ever showing what side he's on. Like he's so good at just like saying his opinions without being judgmental. And he runs a liquor store down the street from me and he always has the best snacks. And he has these chicharrones that are flavored like hot Cheetos, and this makes like my inner 9-year-old so happy because I don't know. Do you remember being a kid and flaming hot Cheetos were like the best snack ever at like a sleepover or a party? And like now they have them on pork rinds. And like that's great because it makes me feel better to eat a pork rind than to eat like a chip. So, oh my god. This is so good. I love this because it's like it's spicy and a little tangy. That's like my favorite flavor profile. Like, you guys ever have like tom yum soup or tom kha? Like, it's salty, it's spicy, it's citrusy, so it's a little sour. Oh no, my chip. And it's a little sweet. It's like my favorite. And then there's like lemongrass and garlic in there, so it's like healthy. It's like the most delicious natural medicine. I'm being a nerd. Whatever. I love food. I know. Bringing Back the Empire says I forgot this was an ASMR channel. I'm not gonna lie. I always wanted to be a vlogger, but for a long time I just had no idea what I would even talk about. So I'm like walking the line between vlog and ASMR right now and seeing what's gonna work for me. I just get so tired of editing. I love the lime flavored pork rinds, I really do. Keep the glasses though. Today is a glasses day. This is a big one. I'm already so full. Tanner Marsh says, yo, I'm back. Thank you for joining us. Oh yeah. Something else that happened at my Young Earth Creationist school. So like, there was this guy that used to come preach. His name was Kent Hovind. And I think it was like my fourth boyfriend that I had a boyfriend in college, super skeptical. And one day he was like watching videos about this guy online called Kent Hovind. And he was like, oh, this guy's such a quack. Like he needs to go to jail for tax fraud. I was like, Kent Hovind? That guy came and spoke at my school like a whole bunch of times. So this guy would come and argue about how carbon dating was a fraud, and like he would claim that all of the skeletons that are like Neanderthal skeletons were a hoax. And like he ended up going to jail for tax fraud because he didn't pay enough taxes like on his church. And it's crazy, like I didn't know that people outside of my community even knew who he was, but apparently he was all over the internet and Reddit for spouting off these like fallacious things about evolution. So like that was wild. That was interesting. Raging Rhino's gaming channel asks, hi, how are you? I'm good. I'm eating crunchy snacks. Raging Rhino's gaming channel says, I've just got back from the gym. I wish I went to the gym. I should have gone on a run today. I would have been able to eat more. Okay. I guess I'll pick a book to read. I feel like I've rambled enough. left in the book that I've been reading. I'm going out of the light. Let's see. This might take me a minute. My room's a mess. I'm about to move. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm gonna pull this one and let's see what else. What else can I find? Oh, there's got to be something good here. Okay. Come into my closet with me. You gotta find something good here. Let's see. Oh, there's an art book that I found in a free library. Do you guys ever explore your town and find the free libraries there? I find so many good books there. Oh, there's also this book by Anais Nin. I love her writing. Okay, I feel like there's enough to work with. I'll find something. Okay. I'm like exhausted just from that brief 5 minutes of digging through my closet. Okay. Okay. I'm so full, you guys. Okay. I can't believe Martello's leaving me. He says, peace out. Okay, that's fine. I see how it is. No? Oh, you're saying goodbye to someone else. Okay, that's fine. That is acceptable. By the way, no one is allowed to leave because I say so. Everyone must stay. Okay. There's a story about monsters and hoaxes. That's kind of the mood I'm in. Talking about monsters and hoaxes. Okay, I'm gonna get the light a little better. What am I wearing? I'm just wearing pajamas, guys. It's not that exciting. Okay. Monsters and hoaxes. There's a Bigfoot story in here. I'm kind of down for it. Let's see. There's Bigfoot and Moby Pike lives. Okay. Bigfoot. 191. Okay. Bigfoot and historic ecological anthropio. I can't read this backwards. And historico-ecological anthropoidological archetypal study. That's a mouthful. Okay. Believers theorize that he came down from Mount Hood. I'm gonna fix this a little bit. Believers theorize that he came down from Mount Hood, the 11,250-foot blizzard-shrouded peak just outside Portland, Oregon. Massive, standing, nearly 9 feet tall, and weighing all of 900 pounds. He strode down the wooded ridges, north and east, to the 7,000-foot level, where the spring snow lay wet and heavy in forests 50 miles from the nearest road. At the 4,000-foot level, the thick coniferous forest thinned and the deep mountain gorges leveled out. It was late June 1971, and the lower rivers raged with the waters of the melting snowpack. At the 3,000-foot level, the first growths of Douglas fir and oak gave way to a few scrub oak, growing singly. From a high point on the ridge that runs down from Mount Hood, called 7 Miles Hill, he could see the lights of the Dalles, Oregon, where 11,000 people lived. 15 miles upriver, the YM Indians, roped to their platforms, perched over the boiling river, netted spring Chinook salmon by the hundreds with their long poles. This they had done every spring since prehistory. The great food is what the YM called salmon, and perhaps he had come down to the semi-arid insecurity of the Dalles to scramble on the banks of the river for the great food during one of the largest salmon runs on the North American continent. Some who theorize about him think that he came down to this narrow point in the river where there is little current, because an inland breaks the swim to Washington and the Cascade Range, where the deer and huckleberries are plentiful in the summer. Why is he called Bigfoot? Ghost Phantom asks. Where's the description? I think we're gonna get to that. I think they're just describing like the location where these Bigfoot sightings had happened. Okay, I'm gonna go on. To the east, the land opens to treeless rolling hills. Great high-tension towers converge on the Chenoweth Converter and scar the land as far as the eye can see. There was no cover for him there, but to swim the river from here, 4 miles west of the Dalles, he had only to cross two roads, the old highway to Portland, US 30, and the new interstate, I-80N. Things had changed since he had last been down to the river. There was an aluminum plant nearby, a new shopping center, a rocket gas station, a new and used car lot, and, strangest of all for him during the nights, the Dalles Drive-In, which specializes in films like The Death Master and The Two-Headed Thing. In the early daylight hours of this first day of June 1971, he stood in a small meadow above what had been the large foothill apple orchard. It was now filled with flat, electrified platforms called the Pinewood Mobile Manor. Joe Medeiros, maintenance man for the trailer court, was watering flowers near his trailer that morning. Directly across US 30 is a large fenced meadow. At about 150 yards, a rock ledge of perhaps 35 feet banks a higher meadow. Medeiros caught a movement along the edge from a corner of his eye. He assumed it was George Johnson, the owner of the land, and went back to watering his flowers. But his mind was engaged in a curious and unconscious arithmetic. He had seen Johnson on the land previously. It wasn't unusual. But this figure was too big. The arms were too long, and the shoulders too broad. Medeiros turned to the ridge for a longer look. What he saw was a shaggy gray figure. He took to be at least 10 feet tall. It had an oval face and a crest or dorsal ridge along the top of its head. The face was flat, brown, and hairless. The man turned back to his flowers and considered his situation. He was responsible to some Portland businessmen who would be down to the Dalles the next day. If he were to report the sighting, there would be deputies and curiosity seekers tromping all over his carefully watered flowers about the same time his bosses arrived. Medeiros later told the sheriff's deputy, Rich Carlson, that he didn't report the incident for fear he'd be called a nut. The next day, around noon, the three businessmen met Medeiros and were in the midst of discussions in a trailer office fronting the meadow when Medeiros again saw an erect, ape-like figure through a window. The four men ran outside and watched from across the road as it moved through a break in the ridge and came into the lower meadow, where it walked among the sparse scrub oak near the rocks. It stopped near a small tree, and from where the men stood, it appeared to be somewhat taller than the tree. The four men and the other creatures stared at one another for perhaps a minute before it turned, went up through the break in the rocks, and disappeared into the upper meadow. This time, the sighting was reported, and Deputy Carlson went out to investigate. From Carlson's report, filed on June 2nd, 1971, Mr. Medeiros described it as being about 10 foot tall, grayish in color, real wide shoulders, and arms that hung way down. He went on to say it looked like an overgrown ape. He stated that it was not a bear. The creature was walking upright at the time of the sighting. The Portland men, solid citizens all, confirmed the sighting and description. The same night, about 9:30, when the last summer light was fading in the meadow, a man named Rich Brown, a high school music teacher, and his wife were returning from a choir practice he had been conducting. At the entrance to the trailer court, Brown's wife either shouted or screamed and pointed to a figure in the lower meadow. Brown swung his car around and put the headlights stark into the meadow. He was joined by a second car, and eventually Medeiros, who stepped out of the office to see why the cars were blocking the entrance. At a distance of about 65 yards, the creature froze and stared into the lights. Brown sprinted for his trailer, grabbed a Winchester 30.06 with a 4-power scope. He opened his car door and steadied the rifle. He considered a shot to the heart, then the head. With the scope crosshairs squarely between the thing's expressionless, flat, black eyes, he released the safety. Like any good marksman, Brown squeezes the trigger slowly. In the moment between the final squeezes and the shot, Rich Brown, who had just come from a church, made a complicated moral decision. "I couldn't shoot it," he said later, "because it looked more human than animal." Aside from the Indian legends, which are virtually timeless, the Bigfoot saga on the North American continent begins in 1811 when the explorer David Thompson noted in his daily journal the track of a large animal. The hole is about 14 inches by 8 inches wide. In the Canadian Rockies by the site of what is now Jasper, Alberta. Several months later, Thompson found similar tracks, which he followed for nearly 100 yards. "Reports from the old time," he noted offhandedly, "had made the head branches of this river and the mountains in the vicinity of the abode of apes or more very large animals." In July 1884, a Victoria, British Columbia newspaper, the Daily Colonist, published an account of the capture of a gorilla-type animal the miners called Jacko. About 4 foot 7 inches tall and weighing about 125 pounds, the animal may have been born a Bigfoot. No other mention can be found of Jacko in the Daily Colonist. The Seattle Times reported a series of bizarre great ape sightings around Mount St. Lawrence near Kelso, Washington, in July 1918. In 1924, a group of miners camped near Mount St. Helens in Washington claimed a horde of giant ape-like creatures attacked them in the middle of the night. One was shot and rolled into a deep canyon that is known today as Ape Canyon. Also in 1924, a prospector named Albert Ostman claimed that while camping near Vancouver, he was picked up in his sleeping bag and carried 25 miles by a giant hairy ape. They arrived in a sheltered valley where he was curiously observed for several days by a family of 4 big feet. He eventually fed them chewing tobacco and escaped while they were sick. In 1940, the Chapmans, an American Indian family living near the Fraser River in British Columbia, claimed a giant hairy ape walked out of the woods and turned over a massive barrel of salt fish in the shed. Footprints were left, and local residents reported they were 16 inches long and 8 inches wide. The stride length was about 4 feet. Mrs. Chapman said the creature was about 8 feet tall. American sightings made the national headlines in the Bluff Creek area of Northern California in October 1958. On the 9th of that month, the Humboldt Times reported that Jerry Crew, a road builder for the Granite Logging Company, made a cast of a huge footprint, 16 inches long. He found on the damp bed of a newly built lumbering access road. The stride was 50 inches long, he said, and ran along the road for a distance of about 3/4 of a mile. 5 days later, 2 construction workers for the same company were driving along a remote mountain road late at night when they saw what they took to be the owner of the prints. Ray Kerr, then 43, said, "It ran upright, like a man swinging long hairy arms. It looked 8 to 10 feet tall to me. Tracks found the next morning were identical to the first set." Ghost Phantom says, "Like a Chuck E. Cheese." I know, those animatronic robots are like, oh my god, they're like 10 feet tall. Anyway, Ghost Phantom says, could be a Nephilim, a hairy one. Nephilim. I read about those, but I don't remember what they are. Says, "Hello with love from Norway. Your show is wonderful." That's kind of, but don't tell your family. They're gonna think I'm weird. I don't know. Or share with whatever. I don't know. You guys are very kind. Maybe Bigfoot is a Chewbacca. Interesting theory. Interviewed in Humboldt Times, Ray Wallace, a partner in the logging firm, denied that he had perpetrated a hoax. Who knows anyone foolish enough to ruin their own business, he said. 15 men had quit their jobs since the sightings. Workers reported that they saw nothing during the day, but that every morning they found huge and apparently curious prints around the equipment. Huge gasoline drums had been turned over. Some workers had the uncomfortable sensation that they were being watched during the day. I've got 3 tractors up there without any operators, Wallace complained, and all my brush cutting crew has quit. Could you imagine, like, what if someone was, like, planting the footprints and, like, intentionally making them look like Bigfoot? Like, I don't know. It could be a prank. It could be real. I mean, maybe we just haven't found what's lurking in the forest. There's a lot of forest up there. Okay, back to the story. Dr. Maurice Tripp, a geophysicist from Los Gatos, California, made casts of the prints, which proved that the toes showed mechanical function. After studying the soil and the depth of the print, Tripp estimated the probable creature's weight at 800 pounds. None of his casts showed impact ridges, which would have indicated that they were made by some kind of mechanical stamping machine. Okay, I guess it wasn't a hoax. Another series of prints, 1,089 in all, were discovered near Bossburg, Washington in October 1969. The tracks measured 17.5 inches by 7 inches. The right foot seemed twisted inward, and calluses on the outside of the foot and the extrapolated bone structure indicated the creature who made the prints had a club foot. Dr. Grover Krantz, a physical anthropologist at Washington State University, studied casts of the Bossburg prints and concluded that if the tracks were hoaxed, the fakers were absolute experts in human anatomy. Since the 1958 Bluff Creek sightings, hundreds have been recorded, some less credible than others. And while Albert Ostman only claimed to have been kidnapped by Big Feet, one Helen Westring confessed right on the front page of the National Bulletin in July 1969, I was raped by an abominable snowman. Seems that while Helen was out hunting one day in the Minnesota woods, she was attacked by a giant horny ape who stripped her of her flimsy clothes in a trice, had his hairy way with her right there on the Mute Forest loam. There are many men hunting Bigfoot on a more or less regular basis, and one of them, the most impressive, is a 46-year-old. Dublin-born former big game hunter named Peter Byrne. Financed by an Ohio businessman, Tom Page, and several others who wish to remain anonymous, Byrne has one paid assistant, 2 young volunteers, 2 international scout jeeps, a pickup truck, a helicopter on 24-hour notice, and a plethora of equipment, including infrared night scopes and sophisticated tranquilizer guns. Byrne, who does not take a salary from expedition funds but lives off his own income, has a Hemingway-esque history. In World War II, he flew for the RAF and subsequently ended up assistant manager of a tea plantation in Nepal. He once effected the rescue of an Everest expedition, stranded by an avalanche at 20,000 feet. For 15 years, he led big game hunts in Africa. In 1968, with the game thinning out, more from poachers than hunters, Byrne wearied of leading mumbling clients through brush and pointing them at the animals he had come to respect. He organized the nonprofit International Wildlife Conservation Society. As executive director, Byrne spent 2 years creating 2 large tiger sanctuaries in Nepal. The project was completed in November 1970. Nagan the Savior says, okay, it might not have been Bigfoot, but I'm not sure what it was that was in the house I was in with my brother, and Mom's boyfriend had left walking 5 minutes before, but I don't know what it was that I heard, but... Oh, so someone in the comments has a Bigfoot story. Okay, while in Nepal, Byrne had become fascinated with the legend of the Yeti, perhaps the mythological abominable snowman, cousin to the perhaps mythical Bigfoot. He disputed the findings of Sir Edmund Hillary's 1960 Yeti hunting expedition, insisting that a month's search didn't constitute a real effort to find the beast. The Yeti scalp Hillary took from a Tibetan monastery had been analyzed as a goat and antelope hair fabrication, proving, to Hillary's satisfaction, that none of the sacred Yeti relics in any of the monasteries were authentic. Byrne felt that the scalp Hillary found was a copy of an original he never saw. Byrne himself had visited half a dozen of the monasteries, and in one secretly cut the thumb from a mummified hand. He wired a mummified human thumb to the palm and sent the relic to scientists in Paris, then London, then the United States. In all cases, the scientists came up with the inconclusive conclusion that the thumb was not human, that it was an animal, and that further, it was unclassifiable. In the Himalayas, only 2 Europeans have claimed Yeti sightings. Byrne, fascinated with the hypothetical creatures, to a point just short of obsession, knew that there were hundreds of sightings in the Pacific Northwest. In 1971, he organized the present 3-year search. He has, to date, logged hundreds of thousands of miles on jeeps, interviewed hundreds of claimants, talked at length to Indians about their legends and knowledge of apes, and camped in the woods in various sighting areas nearly a year's worth of elapsed time. Byrne regards as his strongest piece of evidence an 18-second piece of film taken by one Roger Patterson near Bluff Creek in the early afternoon hours of October 7th, 1967. Patterson, a small rancher and weekend Bigfoot hunter from Yakima, Washington, had spent 4 years and thousands of dollars on this search. He claims to have been on horseback in the Bluff Creek area with Bob Gimlin, his tracker, when they caught sight of a female Bigfoot crouched by a stream. Patterson's horse spooked and nearly threw him. He pulled his camera from his saddlebag and ran toward the creature, trying to focus simultaneously. The 16mm color film begins with a wild, jerking view of the manzanita underbrush. The camera steadies. It pans right and focuses in on an erect ape-like figure which appears to be 30 feet away. It walks at a slight angle to the camera into a thickly wooded area and disappears. It turns once toward the camera, and its face shows large black eyes, a small nose, a massive jaw, and a crest or ridge on the head. Muscle movements can be seen in the upper right thigh. When the right arm swings back, large hair-covered breasts become visible. Patterson, apparently anxious to validate his film, took a lie detector test, which he passed. He submitted the film to the Smithsonian's Director of Primate Biology. John Napier, now visiting professor of primate biology at the University of London, who had expressed his doubts in the recently published book, Bigfoot. The walk seems to Napier self-consciously fluid. The stride is essentially that of a human male, while the filmed creature is a female. The crest is a male feature on orangutans and gorillas, seldom seen in females. The heavy buttocks seen in the Patterson film are a human feature, out of place on an ape-like superstructure. Furthermore, the 14 by 7-inch prints on a human scale would indicate a creature nearly 8 foot tall, while both Byrne and Napier have estimated the height of the Patterson creature at about 6'6". Napier concludes that his discussion of the film by saying that he won't proclaim it's a hoax almost solely because I cannot see the zipper. Byrne respectfully disagrees. Napier is using human formulas to deal with an unknown quantity, he says. Patterson died of cancer in 1972. Byrne visited him in December when he was a gravelly ill man. Patterson continued to insist on the validity of his film. For what it's worth, to my untrained eye, the film is very convincing. Byrne published the results of a year's investigation in the prestigious Explorer's Journal. His case for the existence of the giant apes, which he calls Oma, after the local Indians, briefly and inadequately summarized, is as follows. Number 1. There are hundreds of thousands of virtually unexplored and roadless wilderness areas in the Pacific Northwest. The habitat of the Oma might be in the steep, thickly wooded gorges of this region. These same areas support black and brown bears. If the Oma were an omnivore with a diet roughly similar to that of a bear, the forest could easily support a small Oma population. There have been few sightings because, like most primates, Oma is wary of man. First reports of African gorillas in early 17th century were treated as folklore. Not until the middle of the 19th century did Europeans succeed in tracking down the shy beasts. Byrne does not speculate on the origin of the Oma. though when pressed, he will mention the fossil remains of a Chinese primate anthropologists call Gigantopithecus. Its estimated height was between 10 and 12 feet, and the fossils were discovered in an area of China scientists think provided the Native American population, the Eskimos, and the Indians. The theory, of course, is that nomadic tribes migrated across the frozen Bering Strait. A case, I think, can be made for Gigantopithecus as an ancestor to Oma, Byrne says. Currently living in a trailer in the Dalles, Byrne is still deeply involved in the hunt. If he should come on one of the animals, he plans to dart it and keep it subdued for several days. A team of scientists have agreed to fly in at any time at his expense. They would land in Portland and take a helicopter to the site. There they would take photos, measurements, urine, stool, and blood samples. The Oma would then be set free. I asked if a tranquilizer capable of bringing down the beast that could conceivably weigh up to 1,000 pounds wouldn't kill a man hoaxed up in a gorilla suit. No, Byrne says, and adds wryly. Unfortunately, the safety margin is quite high. The drug has been tested on volunteer prisoners. It simply puts a man under for quite a long period without harming him. You can, however, quote me as saying, I would be delighted to put a dart in the ass of any jerk wearing a fursuit for my benefit. I am indebted to Sergeant Jack Robertson of the Dalles Sheriff's Department for a bit of woodsy Oma lore. If you should be out in the woods without a weapon, he said, and you see Bigfoot, just throw some crap in his face and he'll run away. They hate that. What am I going to do if there isn't any crap around? Listen, Robertson said. If you're out in the woods alone and you see him, there will be plenty of crap around. Flora Thompson is 74 years old, a YM Indian who lives in Sililo Falls, the prime salmon netting spot on the Columbia River, which her tribe calls Wauna. Flora studies and learned the legends of the YM from her late husband, the great chief Tommy Thompson, who died at 108 years old in 1951. She can tell about the time before men, when all the animals were people and were giants. Coyote was the changer. He dug a trench from the great eastern lake to the ocean, so the salmon could swim upstream. In this way, Coyote made the earth fit for man. In the changing time, just after there were men, there was another beast. As Flora Thompson describes it, it is very much like the Oma in the Patterson film. It was a female, and its name was Tlatachia. We use Tlatachia as a scarecrow, Flora says. We tell the bad children that she will come to eat them if they don't behave. The YM are not the only tribe that have legends about giant ape-like creatures. Many tribes call them Sasquatch. In British Columbia, the Salish call him Stwanati. The Kwamault of the Olympic Peninsula call him Siakwa. In Alberta, he is called Sonkwa and Gaga. And in Northern California, the Hupa call him Kadonkwa. In the Central Pacific Northwest, many tribes call him Oma. Peter Byrne, in his investigation, has talked to many of the tribes in the general sighting areas. 2 elderly Indians on the Colville Reservation located in northeastern Washington told him that their grandfathers spoke of seeing up to 20 Oma catching salmon during a run on the Columbia River. In the 1850s, they said, the Oma caught the white man's disease and died. Another legend prevalent in the Northwest is that there were once many Oma, and they lived not only in the forests, but also far to the south, and in the plains of the east. The Indians warred with them, and by the time the white man came, they were all gone. Let's see. Ghost Phantom says we only explored 3% of the ocean, they say. That is true. I wonder what horrors live down deep in the ocean. I think about that all the time. How much is left of this story? Okay, we've got 6 pages. Maurici says, Hola! Hola, Maurici. We've even got a bread holdover. EJ says bread. I did eat bread today. Got some more bread coming. Item. At twilight, in a small mountain town in Northern California, a clerk in the general store thought she saw a large, hair-covered animal she took to be Bigfoot. Within an hour, a large armored crowd had gathered in front of the store, ready to hunt the beast. Investigation showed that the beast was actually a prankster, a high school boy who had thrown fur over his head. Okay, so there is at least one prankster. From a letter to Deputy Carlson, dated November 25th, 1972. I believe from reading the article about the Bigfoot search that it is a man dressed in a gorilla suit. So people do not kill him. He is probably getting a big kick out of doing his thing, scaring people. The article said it looked like a man. That's what it was, a man in a costume. If you attend a Halloween dance in Los Angeles, you would probably see plenty of Yeti dancing with the girls. I've seen plenty of these outfits, so do not shoot him. He's having fun. The letter was signed Miss Los Angeles. Excerpt from a conversation with a deputy sheriff in the Dalles, Oregon. Now, I'm not saying that a critter like that actually exists. I've been hunting this part of the country for almost 20 years, and I've never seen hide nor hair of one. But if I did see one, and I've never seen... But if I did see one, you damn betcha it's a dead one. It'd be worth more to you alive, but even a dead one would bring you $1 million for a squeeze of the trigger. And how would you capture one? You couldn't, is all. Shoot it is the best way. You'd have $1 million. I wouldn't even come to work tomorrow if I shot one tonight. I'd just sit back and start counting my money. Sections of County Ordinance 6901, Skamania County, Washington, located just across the river from the Dalles, prohibited wanton slaying of ape creatures and imposing penalties. Whereas there is evidence to indicate the possible existence in Skamania County of a nocturnal primate mammal, variously described as an ape-like creature, of subspecies of Homo sapiens, and whereas both legend and purported recent sightings and spore support of the possibility, and whereas this creature is generally and commonly known as Sasquatch, or Yeti, or giant hairy ape, and whereas publicly attendant on such real or imagined sightings has resulted in an influx of scientific investigators as well as casual hunters, many armed with lethal weapons. Therefore, let it be resolved that any premeditated, willful, and wanton slaying of any such creature shall be deemed a felony, punishable by a fine not to exceed $10,000, and or imprisonment in the county jail for a period not to exceed 5 years. So there's a law in Washington that you're not allowed to kill a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. That's crazy. Okay, this ordinance was adopted in the spring of 1969, on the first day of April, to be exact. Excerpt from a conversation with the Dallas deputy, Rich Carlson. There are always fellows who go out to shoot it. There are people who said they would shoot it if they saw it. In the beginning, one sighting we had, the townspeople found out about it, and by Jimmy, they went up there with rifles ready to hunt it down. Undoubtedly, there have been many hoaxes in the Bigfoot saga. In 1968, a Mr. Ray Pickens of Colville, Washington, strapped a pair of 16-inch foot-like plywood boards to his feet and tromped over the nearby woods. A small crowd gathered, and the photo was sent to Peter Byrne, who dismissed the tracks as obvious fakes. Pickens later admitted the hoax. John Napier states in his book, "I have in my files photographs of a further set of tracks, which were clearly made by a hinged wooden contraption which wouldn't fool the village idiot." Another citizen of Colville, the Bigfoot hunter Ivan Marks, made a series of phone calls one night in October 1970. He was in a state of high excitement. A wounded Bigfoot had been sighted near Colville, and in the morning, he was going to go out after it with his camera. As might be expected, a crowd gathered, and Marks stayed in radio contact with them. At one point, he claimed to have sighted the beast, and some minutes later, he was actually filming it. Peter Byrne said Marks offered to sell the film to Byrne's organization for $25,000. He agreed to buy on the condition that the film could be studied first for signs of a hoax. Byrne says his study showed that the film had been shot about a month previous to the date Marks claimed that it had been shot in an entirely different area than that claimed by Marks. Armed with this information, Byrne, the sheriff, and some concerned citizens made a visit to Marks Colville's home. Marks was gone, and there was no forwarding address. He resurfaced a few weeks ago on the television show You Asked for It. He had shot a film, he said, of a large Bigfoot in a snowstorm, and had come to You Asked for It because he was impressed by the show's reputation. To my layman's eyes, the film seems an incredibly clumsy fake. Peter Burns said it was ridiculous. In it, the creature is seen white in a heavy snowfall. It walks, man-like, toward the camera, jumps around aimlessly, and gives us a view of his front and back sides. The white gorilla suit bags and wrinkles in the ass. Most of the known hoaxers seem to be motivated by money, by a desire for notoriety, by the desire to put one over on everybody, especially the bright boys, the scientists, the journalists, as everyone knows, are beyond these considerations. Through perseverance and knowledge of human nature, I personally obtained an exclusive interview with Bigfoot. I had put up notes in the local supermarkets and laundromats, asking anyone with Bigfoot information to call me at the Oregon Motel in the Dalles. About 1 a.m. on a dark and stormy night, I received a call. A hoarse voice with a heavy accent I couldn't identify asked me if I was the writer who wanted to talk to Bigfoot. I said I was. The voice said, "I am Oma." He stretched it out. Oma. He said he would meet me in 20 minutes at the local Denny's 24-hour coffee shop. He said I would recognize him because he would wear an ankle-length trench coat and a slouch hat. Because he would be 9 foot tall. I suggested he carry a baseball so as not to attract attention. Or carry a basketball so he would not attract attention. I dressed quickly and doused my face with cold water. The restaurant was one of those bits of roadside formica with zippy muzak and menopausal waitresses on Mother Goose shoes. The 2 truck drivers discussed Peterbilt rigs near the door. Oma sat in the rear, hunched over a cup of coffee, the hat pulled over his forehead. He looked up quickly, almost angrily, as I approached the table. "Cahill?" "Yeah," I said. "You Oma?" "That's me." "So why did you call me?" I asked. He smiled strangely. "I need ink." He wanted to know if I had done any interviews and what my approach to the story was going to be. I said that I saw him as a survivor, a self-reliant primitive in the midst of a vast technocracy, a pleasant reminder that we haven't yet swallowed up all of our wilderness. I said that I saw him as a man's closest brother on the earth, and that by knowing him we would certainly learn to know ourselves better. Oman nodded, absent-mindedly while I spoke. He called the waitress over and ordered 5 lumberjack breakfasts. A stack of delicious buckwheat cakes with a rich creamery butter and Vermont maple syrup, mounds of hash browns, a giant slab of Canadian bacon, golden brown toast, and an assortment of the finest jams, a breakfast fit for a lumberjack. While he ate, I pumped him with questions. He had been coming down to the Dalles from Fort Hood every spring for 4 years to raid the apple orchard that is now the Pinewood Mobile Manor. One fateful June, 5 years ago, he found the orchard gone. In his confusion, he had come to the Dalles Drive-In, which at the time was playing Planet of the Apes. He watched the film 3 times every night for 2 weeks. He learned to speak English, and an unshakable idea grew in his mind. Through the long snowy winters on Mount Hood, he considered. Every spring, when he came down to Dalles, there was a new Apes sequel film. This year, he was ready to act. Suddenly, he pulled the hat back from his forehead and turned his profile to me. The features were humanoid, but the nose was flattened, and the eyes were flat black coals. "What do you think?" he blurted. "About what?" "About me, Oma. Do you think I could get a part in the next ape film?" He must have seen the look on my face, because he stopped talking and stared moodily at his lumberjack specials. Mentally, I scrapped my survivor story. A great, inexplicable wave of sadness washed over me. We sat in silence for several minutes. "Been swell talking to you," I said, and faked an expansive yawn. "Well, I better get back to the motel." He looked up, and for the first time his humanoid face showed emotion. It seemed twisted into an expression of hopeless pleading. "I need the ink," he began, then changed his tack. "Hollywood must know." I stood up, ready to leave. His lower lip quivered, and for a terrible moment I thought he might begin to cry. We paid the bill, and he followed me out the door, where we stood for several minutes in the black and windswept Oregon night. He continued to jabber about ape films in his strange accent. "Look," I said finally, "I gotta go." "Okay, sure," he said. There was a distant bitterness in his voice. "Ciao." Okay, what's happened in chat while I've been reading? Denny's Grand Slam sounds good right about now. Denny's is so weird. Like, I feel like sometimes I crave pancakes from like IHOP or Denny's, but like it always feels terrible if I do. Oh my goodness. Autopilot 23 says, I don't think I've ever had someone read a bedtime story. I used to like be so addicted to reading as a kid that I would like read under the covers at night for hours until I got tired. I occasionally would have like occasionally like a parent or grandparent would read a bedtime story, but more often than not, like I would just read to myself. Um, and like I was an only child, so like books were a lot of my company. I don't know. Uh, I don't know if you relate to that. Like before there were tablets and like iPads, there were books. Back in the olden days, really dating myself here. So I would read a lot and like we used to go to the library a lot because it was free and I could get as many books as I wanted. So like that's what I would do most of the time. Let's see. We're an hour and a half in. It's like 8:30. I could keep going. I thought that was a funny end to that story. Like I can't tell if it's a joke that he made up or if there's actually like a really hairy guy that lives in seclusion. But like I know there are people with hirsutism, like they just have hair like all over themselves. And like what if there is a guy that just is completely hairy? Like did you ever watch like Ripley's Believe It or Not? Like there are men and women that are just completely covered in hair and they used to be in like freak shows and stuff. And like sometimes I wonder if there are still people like that that just don't want to deal with society. Um, or like, anyway, there was this website that I used to be fascinated by as a kid where it was like, descriptions of people that were in the circus that had like strange body configurations or like strange like conditions that basically they would go be entertainment for other people. So there's always like the werewolf or the wolf man or something. Um, there was also I read a story about this guy that had this kind of condition where he was just constantly eating like everything in sight and he was just constantly hungry. And like he would eat like everything. Like he would eat food, but he would also eat like wooden objects and like anything. Like he was just constantly starving. And when he died, they did an autopsy on him and saw that like inside of his abdomen, like his stomach was like really weird. It was like he had this like cavity in his stomach that was like this bottomless pit. And he was just constantly like he didn't have like a normal digestive system. Like something about it was just very strange. So yeah, that's like a weird interest that I've always had is like like strange conditions that humans have. Like back when the Discovery Channel was about science, like do you guys remember that? Like way back in like 1994 to 1996, like this Discovery Channel had like actual science programming and there would be like, oh, here's a person with a bony tumor condition. It's genetic and uncurable, but here's how we're going to treat the symptoms. Like we're going to have this like major surgery and then this person can have a normal face. And like That's what used to be on the Discovery Channel before there was like I don't know, like dramatic shows about flipping houses or like interior decoration and stuff. I don't know. And back when, like back in the day, the History Channel used to actually have like legitimate history programs about like ancient Egypt or like the Roman Empire or something. I'm really dating myself here. Back in my day, there was a time when like factual information had to be presented on TV. That was cool. I miss those days. Let's see. I have a couple other books. So I found this in a little free library, and it's called Art the Way It Is. And it's pretty cool, like explains like cultural context and like behind different art movements or like different aspects of artistic expression. Let's see. But I don't know if it'll translate well to like an unhinged bedtime story. It's kind of a niche interest, but there are cool pictures. Like, look at this. I'm trying to figure out what it is. Figure 130. Okay, this is a wood cutting of a sea goddess. Let me see. It's by Heinrich Goltzius around the time period of 1588 or 1589. Can you imagine like sitting and sculpting out of wood? Where can I see? There's a description. I gotta read about it somewhere. This is a demonstration of chiaroscuro, or like the effect of like light and dark, the effect of light and dark shade in art. So this was done with wood cutting. This is the term artists apply to the general effect. The specific applications of it to noses, lips, eyes, drapery, folds, and so forth are called modeling. Chiaroscuro always refers to light and dark, but there are some specialized uses of the term. It's often applied to a kind of drawing, emphasizing light and shade effects. Usually, they would work on tinted paper, usually gray, and they would indicate shading with dark crayon or ink and noting the lightest places with a white crayon or paint. That's kind of cool. So they added light. This is a woodcut technique called chiaroscuro, in which the light in the print is indicated by white paper, semi-shade by some medium tone, and dark shade by black or extremely dark gray. Okay, so that reminds me. Did you guys ever watch Batman the Animated Series? I feel like it was like on between like 96 and 99. Back in the late 1900s. And apparently they used a similar technique in animating that show. So they used black paper and they drew the cartoon on like black paper and then they added light to it. And apparently that's what gave it such a dark aesthetic. I thought that was cool. Let me look up. I can look up a picture of it. Let me see. Awkward. Okay. I'm gonna pull up something about that. How's it going, guys? Give me a minute while I look up some images. I remember the Mr. Freeze episode looked pretty cool. I'm kind of struggling to find a good image that demonstrates this. It was just very dark. Let's see, what time is it? It's almost 9. Let me see what else I cracked this book open to. Let's see. There's another figure that does this. Okay, so this is a lot of darkness with some light accents, and this is in the Louvre, apparently. This is Georges Latour, Joseph the Carpenter. It's an oil on canvas. Oh my gosh, was that a Paul Reed Smith? Orest asked. How could you even tell? That was so quick. Yes, it's a Paul Reed Smith. People are telling me that like a Paul Reed Smith is an old man guitar. Apparently all my guitars are old man guitars. It makes me a little sad, but like they're nice. I like playing them. But yeah, like I went to this open mic the other night, and like all the guys there had Paul Reed Smith guitars, and they were playing like top 40s hits from the late 90s, and I'm like, oh man, it's like this is like kind of a basic, it's a basic bitch guitar, but like they are really nice. They do feel really nice. And like I'm not going to feel guilty about that, because I do know people who like they have uh like they have nice instruments that they don't like because it was reportedly a good brand, and it's like they're trying to work really hard to love their instrument, and like that sounds like a nightmare to me. Like if you pay like $1,200 for an instrument that's like reputable and you don't like it, it doesn't feel good to you, that sounds like a terrible deal. So it's like I'd rather have a guitar that's like a little dorky but it feels good for me, you know? Like I bought a cool guitar as my first guitar, and I ended up hating it, like cuz um I didn't like the placement of the pickups. Like, oh god, I'm nerding out about guitars on live stream. I'm probably alienating everyone. I'm really sorry. But like, so like in the scene that I used to be in, like the cool kids guitars were like Jackson's, and Charvel is like a division that Jackson used to make. They don't make them anymore, but like those are like what the cool kids play. They have active pickups. They sound great if you're doing like quick aggressive stuff. And at the time I wasn't ready to do that. And I also just hated the active pickups. They were big and blocky, and when I was trying to learn how to do my right hand, like I was always hitting the pickup because it's just very blocky. It was not sleek or like flush with the body. So it was just getting in my way all the time, and I really regretted picking like a cool kid guitar. Anyway, now that I like have been playing for a while, like I really like the sound of that guitar for particular things, and sometimes I use it. But I really wish I had like swallowed my pride and gotten something like a Fender back then, because like the humbucker pickups are like pretty flush with the body. But I don't know, I'm picky about how things look sometimes, so like I got a PRS because aesthetically I just liked how it looked better. But it ended up being like I love that guitar, it's so versatile. So Yeah. Here, I'll show you again. I got it a few years ago. It's fuchsia. It looks great against a black outfit. You own 8 Martins and a Taylor. Martins are great guitars. I haven't been able to get one yet, but like, I really wish I had a Martin acoustic. They are so cool. But yeah, what I really need right now, I need to think about getting a nylon string that has an input jack. That's like a big priority because so I played 2 open mics and a show this week, and um my guitar, the sound hole is too small for an acoustic pickup. So I was struggling, and the sound guys did not have a good time. Like, they were trying to mic the sound hole, and my voice was just so much louder than the mic miking the guitar, and it was like feeding back a little, and just, it was all wrong. Like, I got through it, and I feel like I gained a bunch of experience in like playing in an uncomfortable position, but I don't want that to happen again. So like, what I really need to do is just invest in a nylon string with an input jack. So I guess that's kind of a short to midterm goal right now, is like get a more appropriate nylon string so I can finger pick, or I could learn to finger pick on my Taylor guitar, but it's got a narrower neck, and that it's kind of like cramped to like finger pick on a narrow neck. I could probably learn to adjust. I just don't like it. But you know, anyway, that's enough of me nerding out about guitar stuff. Like, I am so sorry for subjecting you to that. Like, I know everybody's probably bored by it, but someone says Fishman acoustic pickups. All I use. Would they fit? I guess I'd have to go try one. I have I think it's like a Dean Martin like acoustic pickup. It fits inside my Taylor guitar. But and it sounds great. I use it for when I started recording, that's all I would use to record was the Taylor acoustic. It's a GS Mini plus the Dean Martin pickup, and it sounded great. And I had no experience, and people were like, "Oh, that sounds good. How did you do that?" And like, that was cool. And I was using like some stupid audio interface, like a Lexicon Alpha. I shouldn't say that. It was fine. It was a good starter input audio interface. And yeah, you can't go wrong with an acoustic pickup. It makes everyone's life easier, including my own. So yeah, if anyone has suggestions, like, or your opinion on the matter, I am open to hearing it, because I'm not thrilled with my performance experience, like being uncomfortable playing with no pickup and no input jack. Something needs to change if I'm gonna be happy about playing finger picked songs in the future. But maybe I just need to like work on finger picking on my steel string or something. I can do it. I've been doing it at the beach. I just don't like it. I'm not thrilled about it, but whatever. Arrest Fourth Horseman says I live like 45 minutes away from the factory. You mean the Martin's factory? Like, which factory? I actually, I got a reservation to go. Oh no, my light died. Okay, that's fine. I made an appointment to go on the tour of the Taylor factory in El Cajon. We'll see if I make it out, because life is a bit chaotic. But I want to go out there and check it out. Let's see. No one's answering me. It looks like everybody's kind of chilled out. I guess everyone's ready for bed. Little sleepy. Everybody's ready to go to bed. This is such a party hardy Saturday night. That's okay. It's chill. This has been a chill night. Robert Thompson asks, how do you get over someone? Find whatever excites you, like outside of another person. Like, dive headfirst into whatever makes you happy and pursue that. Yeah. Because it's like, do you really want to live the rest of your life like being sad about losing someone? I wouldn't want to. Yeah, Oris says look for Bigfoots. You could occupy your time looking for Bigfoots. That's pretty chill. Like anything. Dancing, I feel like for me, like has stabilized my emotions so much where it's like I feel so happy that I get to do this thing that like people can be in my life or not, but all that matters is like, am I spending my time the way I want to? And like, am I reaching my goals? Am I taking steps every day towards things that I care about, the activities I care about? And like, I feel like the more I do that, then like, things that emotionally resonate with me and my life like start to come in. And like, I'm not an expert at life by any means. Like, I feel like I'm just starting to learn like how to have a happy life. But whenever I feel sad or upset or longing or angry, like I just try to find something that I would rather be doing and make myself do it, or find something I'd rather be thinking and focus on that. Like, stuff that really helps me is like I love like animal videos. And like when I was applying for graduate school like way back in, I won't even say what year, but like I was really sad. I was really depressed because I graduated into a recession and I was struggling to find a job. So before I started working on my graduate school applications, every day I would spend like an hour watching funny or cute animal videos until I finally felt like happy. And then when I was feeling good, I start like working on my applications or working on my like you have to write like a personal statement. You have to like share what your goals are for your research. And so once I was in a better mood, then I would write that better. And then like at the same time, back then I was working on a blog, and like I don't know, I guess being like laughing a lot gave me more inspiration to work on those projects. So I feel like anything you can do to entertain yourself or like um make yourself feel better is like a huge win. Cuz like if you're like, not to diminish anyone's struggle, because like being sad sucks, but if you're sitting around feeling sad, your brain is only reinforcing like those neural pathways. And like the more you're sad, the more your brain will let itself be sad, because that's like the paths that are strengthening in your head. And I'm not saying this to freak you out, because being panicked, like, oh no, I'm sad again, that's gonna get worse, like that's not gonna help anything. But like the more you can gently coax yourself out of sadness and into something a little better, then like that's gonna be better for your brain. So I used to be an ABA therapist, and one of the things that I learned in the research is that when you are coming from a place of love and happiness, the brain can learn 60 times faster than if you are like coming from sadness or anger or like bitterness or any of those negative emotions. Like, your brain is built on your emotions, right? whether it be fear or sadness or anger or happiness or love, like all of those emotions create connections in your brain. But the brain wants to be happy. And the more that you can foster feelings of happiness, the easier it's going to be for you to learn stuff that you want to do, activities you want to do, or like, anything you want to do. If you make it fun, it's going to like make your life so much easier. So like the more fun you have, the better it's going to be for you. So that's why like I try to make it's a struggle sometimes, but I try to make fun a priority in my life. And like that was the basis of when I worked at an ABA company. That was the basis of how we taught kids, is like it's got to be fun because they have to want to like be in that therapy session with you, hanging out and like learning stuff. So like a lot of the people are like, I'm not the best stand-up comedian, but like a lot of my coworkers were so funny, and like you gotta be, or else the kids are not gonna want to pay attention to you. So like Mark asked, what are we talking about? Breakups? Yeah, I guess kind of. Like after a breakup, you really gotta have fun, and like any way you can. Like how are you gonna find more fun in your life? I think that's the best way to get over someone. Like hopefully you're not being self-destructive, but like anything you can do that's fun is going to help you get over someone faster. I think I'm going to eat some of my ube ensaymada. It's covered in butter and cheese. Okay. I don't recommend eating for fun. Like, you should eat when you're hungry. But I have this. It's filled with purple yam and cheese and butter, and I'm going to take a bite of it. Okay, so like, rewind. I'm going to tell you more. So like, oh, that's good. So like, what started this was like, I was in a bike accident in like November of 2011, and I hit my head. It wasn't that bad. Like I was hospitalized. It was bad, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Like luckily I was pretty healthy, but like so I had a brain injury. I got a concussion, and I had like some minor brain damage. I was in grad school at the time. And like so one night I was at home, and like there's a condition called prosopagnosia, where like if you're looking at someone's face, your brain can't comprehend how the face is put together. So like one night I was at home watching TV after the accident, and like I saw on TV like the faces were melting apart like a Picasso painting. And like I looked at my boyfriend at the time, and his face started melting apart. It was like his nose was floating on his forehead and his eyes were like all over the place. Anyway, I was freaking out a little, so I just decided to go to bed and hope it would go away. And fortunately, it never came back. But there were other things that were weird. Like, I couldn't talk as fast. Like, I struggled to remember words. I struggled to remember, like, I've always struggled to remember people's names, but it got worse. And then, so I did a bunch of research when I was in school. And, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to recover from this? Because this sucks. I'm sad. I was really anxious because they put you on pain medication when you leave the hospital, and then when you go off of it, you have massive anxiety because like it was before fentanyl. It was like OxyContin and stuff, or like Percocet. And when you go off of it, it makes you really anxious. So I was suffering like the worst anxiety of my life. Plus I had post-traumatic stress disorder because I got hit by a car. So I'm like, okay, something needs to change. I need to be happier. What am I going to do? So finally, I started working out, but it was like I struggled. I really struggled with motivation. Like I tried a couple different gyms, and like it sucked and I hated it. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I started dancing, and that was super fun, and it worked. And like I never liked exercise in my life. I always was like forced into it, but this was like something that worked, like something I chose for myself. I wasn't doing it because I felt like I should. I actually did it because I enjoyed it, and I wasn't worrying about losing weight. I just did it because it was fun. And then like over time my anxiety started to like go away. And like it was slow. Like I used to cry and have panic attacks every day. Like I felt like I was gonna die. I seriously felt like the walls were closing in on me. I felt like everything was a disaster. Like I'm gonna be homeless. This is terrible. Like I'm never gonna recover from this accident. And then like slowly over time, I only cried like 3 days a week, and then I only cried once a week. And then so one day I noticed the panic attacks like hadn't come for like a month. And then like I still was kind of talking kind of slow, but this was better than things were. So like gradually things started to get better. I was still pretty awkward though. Like when you talk slow, people don't have patience for you. They think you're awkward and they just don't want to deal with it. So for a while I was just really like struggling socially. And then like um eventually I got a job as an ABA therapist. Ulysses says, "Whoa, I didn't know you'd gone through all that." Honestly, I know people who have been through worse, like much worse than that, but like it was pretty rough for me at the time. Um I actually have a bunch of scars from the accident. My face was pretty torn up, like, but I had a good like plastic surgeon, so I don't know if you can see, but I still have a road rash scar under my eye. People always tell me you got eyeliner. I have a scar on my nose that makeup never sticks to it. You don't really see them that much. And my lips are kind of scarred, but you can't really tell. Like, where my lips were sewn back together, they're a little crooked. But, like, most people don't notice. Um, but, like, I felt pretty ugly for a while, but it's chill. Like, you can bounce back from a lot of stuff. But, that's why my teeth are a little weird. Like, this one is fake. This is an implant. That's why it's darker than the rest. Like, one day I have a dream to, like, get them fixed for real and get them, like, looking better. But I'm just grateful to, like, be alive at this point. Anyway, so I got this job. Bert, Bert says, "Are you 53?" Let's say that. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm actually 60. I'm really old. No, I'm not. I like pretending that I'm never going to tell you my age. So, anyway, I got a job as an ABA therapist, and that's when things got a lot better because there was so much socializing. I was like pushed to like talk faster, but also like the people there were very gentle and like very like non-judgmental. So, a lot of my social anxiety went away because like yeah, we were having a ton of socializing, but they were just like not judging me from the learning curve. So like I felt like quicker on the uptake and like just like way had way easier time socializing after that. I used to have so much social anxiety, but they were like the coolest people. And Ulysses asked, "Did it hurt though getting hit by a car?" So like I was unconscious. I don't remember the accident. Like I blacked out, and when I woke up I was in the hospital, but I had like a dream or like a hallucination that I made it home. So when I woke up in the hospital I was so confused. Like they were wheeling me into surgery and I was like, where am I? Um and I was like, where am I? And they're like, oh, you're in the hospital, you've been hit by a car, you're about to go into surgery. And I was like, am I gonna die? And they said to me, like, no, you're not gonna die. Don't be ridiculous. And I was like, don't lie to me. You probably tell everybody that. Am I gonna die? And they're like, no, you're not gonna die. You just need to go into surgery. So, um, I woke up after surgery and I was like really euphoric that it was like, that I was fine. Um, so I just remember being really excited that I didn't die. But also like I remember at the time thinking like the only real goal I had in my life was I wanted to get into grad school and I got in. So like if I died, I was like chill with that. But I woke up and I wasn't dead and I was like, "Oh, it's all gravy now," cuz like I got into grad school, so we're chill. Um Lion Man asked why I died. So I got hit by a car and like I thought I was gonna die. But the crazy thing, so like at one of my jobs, I had a job at the time where I was doing PTSD research. Like before I knew I had PTSD, I was hired to do PTSD research. And I met someone there that had also been hit by a car. But the crazy thing is, so he was hit by a car. He stayed conscious. He remembered the collision because um, so he got run over and he was stuck under the car and he got dragged. And so he stayed conscious and pulled himself out from under the vehicle. So he got hurt way worse than I did. He had way more major surgery. This is why I say, like, I know plenty of people have had it worse than me. Anyway, so he ended up at the same job I did, doing military research for post-traumatic stress disorder. Um, so yeah, that's a wild story. Um, Weird coincidence, but like way more gnarly story than me. And like he said that he didn't really notice the pain because the adrenaline was so much that like you don't think about the pain when you're in that situation, you just like survive. And I hadn't thought about it that way until I met him because I lived with a lot of fear and like I let it stop me from doing a lot of stuff. So, I know, isn't that crazy? Like the will to survive is very strong. It's crazy sometimes. So, if there's something you're afraid of doing, don't be afraid. Just do it. You will survive. And life is about doing stuff. Like someone commented earlier, the way out of anxiety is to just do stuff that you're afraid of. Um, yeah. And I agree. You gotta just do stuff. Um, where was I? I feel like I'm just rambling. But anyway, um, yeah, so I was only in the hospital for 2 days. It wasn't that bad. I had a broken arm, um, but it wasn't that bad. Like, it sucked, but there have been people who've gone through way worse. I'm sure there are people in this chat who have dealt with way worse. But, it took about a year to recover. And I read a ton of books about neuroplasticity in that time. And that's why I took up playing guitar because so I did a bunch of research and I was in grad school, so I had access to the databases. And I did a bunch to research like recovery from traumatic brain injury and like happiness. And at that point I kind of decided like I need to prioritize my own happiness in life because like I could die. Like I could just get killed. And then my life would be over and what would I have to show for it? Like I would have degrees, but like would I ever really have been happy? Like, like a little, but not as much as I should be. Like, we could all die tomorrow, and like, are we even having fun? Are we even enjoying our life? Like, I hope so. I hope that you live every day, like, prioritizing your goals. Like, if you were gonna die tomorrow and you were gonna die, could you say to yourself, like, I'm happy with the life I lived? So, like, I don't know, I thought about my priorities and like I didn't want to spend so much time studying and worrying about school anymore. So, like, I took up guitar because that was a goal I'd put off my entire life. And I started taking lessons. And it was a struggle because I hurt my head. Like, I was really slow. It was just really hard. It felt really, really bad for a long time. But like I would have moments where like okay this feels good and I'm like starting to remember songs I cared about and stuff. And like when I got really serious about playing, my memory came back a ton. Like a ton of memories that I forgot from my early life started coming back. Like music is one of the best things you can do for your brain. And like the more I do it, the more my brain feels better. So like Sally says, this is something I can really relate to. I go to meetings for brain injury support. Oh my God, what happened? Ulysses says, it was so sick hearing you talk about performing live. Takes guts to do that. It is like, if I think about it, it's just a huge victory that like I'm at the point of performing, and like, sure, I still fuck up sometimes, but like a lot of people don't notice. Like, sure, people who are really competent do notice, but the vast majority of people don't give a crap if you're not perfect. So like it's a huge victory to be performing and to like actually receive payment for those performances sometimes, and to like to get to meet people who are really good at what they do is like so cool, considering when I remember when I first started, like how much of a struggle it was. Like I forget sometimes like how, like, where I came from and like how rough it was to even get started. So like yeah, I guess it's a huge victory. Sally says, I used to work in industrial electrical and I got my head crushed on a job site between a lift and steel beam. Oh my God. So your skull actually cracked. Like, okay, I broke my jaw. I broke my jaw in several places, and I broke my cheekbone. So I had to have a titanium rod put in, but I didn't like crush my skull proper. Ulysses says you get paid. That's so sick. Plus, I've added that Ween song you played to my last week daily playlist of songs. I get paid sometimes. Yeah, it's very cool. Like sometimes it depends on ticket sales, but like, um, yeah, I get paid sometimes. It's always nice when you get paid. That's why I'm busking now, because like if I want to play guitar 4 hours every day, I might as well like get paid for it. I feel like it kills several birds with one stone. So like, I don't know, I might as well. Oh my God, Sally says I got in a lawsuit because the hospital failed to treat it properly. I am so sorry. I hope you got taken care of, because like a malpractice suit for something like that, like I hope you're okay. I hope you got the money you needed to like at least start to make your life put back together, because that sounds incredibly rough. Ulysses asked, I never asked because I'm kind of intimidated by you since you're so cool. What kind of music do you generally play? First of all, do not be intimidated, because I'm like, I don't know, like the biggest square or the biggest nerd ever. But like my last band was, we were trying to do a heavier rock album, but we didn't finish. So like if you want to hear some of our music, you can go to platypusegg.bandcamp.com. I can put it up like in the description when I post this video. But we started off doing like a mix of like, I don't know, kind of like punk rock mixed with experimental, mixed with like my cringy vocals. And then like it's like if you had a bunch of people who liked the Beatles that wanted to dabble in like heavy experimental music, it's like that. And then our second album was like some R&B, and like we had like a doom sludge song and like a primacy kind of song on our second album, and like a couple like R&B like funky songs. And then our third album we were trying to like be more like hard rock or progressive, and like we never finished it, and then we broke up. But I'm gonna put that in the description if you're curious. It's like it was a fun project. I really miss it. But ultimately became too hard to manage. Um, Sally says my brother has some songs on YouTube. Like post them in the comments. I'll check it out later. Ulysses says I've got to hear this dude. I hope you check it out. Like I was really proud of that project. I really miss it. I hope I get to play music like that again. I feel like I poured like every ounce of myself that I had into that project. And I hope I have another project as liberating as that again in my life. I'm sure I will. It'll just take time. But now I'm doing a lot of like I got kind of sucked into like I took a classical guitar class, And there's like a blend of like classical and a little jazz and like Latin jazz and like so I've gone kind of the route of playing the nylon string and finger picking and like when I busk I'm just playing a bunch of like covers. Um so I've kind of like gone back to basics by myself because I feel like there's a lot of remediation I need to do like to catch up with my peers, but also like just to like do stuff I haven't taken enough time to like focus on the basics. And like busking at the beach is a great way to do that because like I can learn at my own pace and like be very repetitive, play a bunch of songs, just like get some basic skills more solid. Um yeah. But my favorite music is like um experimental rock, like that I don't really have the skill set to play yet, but it's my favorite to listen to. Bands like Mr. Bungle and like Def Club and Blotted Science and like Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum. Those are my favorites. But it's a big learning curve to play music like that. So I'm trying to just follow the thread and like do whatever is calling me that excites me and is also achievable. And I feel like I get better at that every day. Like one band that is really fun is System of a Down because it's like it's all in a tuning that makes playing very easy. So working on right hand technique is really chill. Um, because a lot of what the guitarist for System of a Down plays is just like you bar the fret because it's like the tuning that it's in makes it very easy to do. Um, so like I find my way around like how to pique my interest and also like um I don't know, find stuff that's like simple but like doable, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, does that make sense? I guess it does. I feel like it gets easier the longer I do it to find like what to work on. To get to know myself better and like what I like. But I was like really lost for a long time. Like I had no idea like what I even wanted to practice. Yeah, so what else? Like there's also a couple other random things like yeah, Sally says the style you practice, I feel like it will always change. I think so too. I think like there's so many possible techniques to work on and like there's lots of different things that are exciting. So like at one point this summer for 2 months, I got into a phase of like trying to practice like all the different modes, like soloing in different scales. That was so fun. I want to go back to doing that. Um, I feel like I exhausted like every jam track on YouTube for a while. That was cool. I miss that. I want to do another round. Um, I haven't done that in a while, but that was cool. So since Sally says, Jean, let's keep the vibes to music if you wouldn't mind. You guys are enjoying the music discussion? Okay. I'm glad I'm not boring anyone because it's like what I think about a lot of the time. So, like, I hate when I nerd out and it just bores people. So you tune to CGCGGC. Is that's probably a really helpful tuning for like emo tapping styles, like Midwest emo. I feel like they use really like chill tunings like that when you're tapping. Um, which is something I want to do more. I honestly don't do that enough, but it's like kind of fun. Um, that's kind of why I got sucked into YouTube, because like when I don't have a teacher, one of the coolest things is just like delving into all the like guitar instruction videos on YouTube. And no, I mean I'm just being self-deprecating. Like I know I'm not boring, but I know that like sometimes when you get into it, it can alienate people. So I know it's not boring. I'm just trying to what's the word? Like account for like different people's different interests, you know? But like there's so many good like teacher types on YouTube. Some of the best guitarists have like instructional channels on YouTube. Um like have you guys watched the Gibson series Riff Lords? Like there's so many good specials that like Molly Miller is like a beast. Like I admire her so much. She's just like so good at playing funky music. And she's just so good at explaining what she's doing, make it really clear what she's doing. She's like one of the few, like, that's a rare skill set. I often meet musicians who are just like, they struggle, they're so good, they struggle to explain what they're doing. But Molly Miller, I feel like there's a very good, like, connection between like verbalizing what she's doing while she's doing it. And that's like such a good like teacher skill set. Like, I don't know. That's rare, I think. So if you don't know, I think Molly Miller is the guitarist for John Mayer's band. And she's very, very good. Sally says Steve Vai has some instructional stuff for a while. Oh yeah, so like I never really listened to Michelangelo Battio's like stuff because it just seemed like very like wanky. But like during my guitar class I took last summer, like my teacher put up some of his videos, and other friends had told me like, oh, actually he has some great instructional videos. So I went online and like actually he's a pretty good teacher. Like he's got a bunch of great videos up. Like I should have given him a chance earlier. So like I think I come in with some prejudices about like, oh, I don't want to sound like that. But like there's a lot of people with styles I'm not super into that have some really great technique suggestions that like I had no idea. So that was cool. Like I kind of like classes because they force you to do stuff you wouldn't have like done on your own. And it gives you a structure, and like you have to achieve like a certain amount of competence to get the grade. And so I feel like it forced me to look at some stuff that I wouldn't have on my own. Um, Sally says, "Do you like thrash or punk?" Yes. There are so many good female guitarists and singers in that genre of music. Okay, so like somebody told me about Reba Myers in Code Orange. She's so cool. Like I have a crush on her. She's amazing. Not to be creepy, but you know what I mean. Like when you admire someone and like they're so good. Like I wish I had that presence. I wish I could play like that. Um I want to find out like more good female punk and thrash guitarists. I know there's also she teaches in my city. What's her name? She's I can't remember. But yeah, I want to find like more female guitarists to pay attention to because I feel like you don't hear about them enough. Like another one that I just love is Yvette Young from Covet. Like her album Currents is one of my obsessions. Um, so incredibly good. Like I'm not super into emo, like it's all right, but like her Midwest emo style is like my favorite of that genre. Um, Orest Fourth Horseman says, "You'd be surprised who I know." Probably not. There's a lot of well-connected people. I'm sure you know a bunch of people, and it's great. Um, I think I kind of missed out on emo because I was like a really grumpy kid during the phase when it got popular, and like I don't know, for some reason I just like hated the vocal style when I was that age when it was popular. But like as an adult, I'm more chill with it now. I was just a very grumpy preteen and teenager. I just like hated everything. Like I don't know why. Um, but like recently, someone invited me to like an emo party night at the House of Blues. So I went to it because like someone offered me a free ticket and I was like, yeah, okay. I had such a good time. Like I kind of drank heavily to get how cringy I felt out of my system. But once I had a PBR tall can, I had a blast. It was so much fun. I don't recommend binge drinking to get past your cringe, but I don't do that very often. Um so like yeah, that was so much fun. I had such a good time. It was like a DJ. It was like going to the club, but like emo music instead of like um what do you call it? Instead of like EDM dance hits. But like that was so much fun. Like I would do it again. That was like one of the best nights I had in a long time. Um it's like emo rave or whatever. You know what I mean? So they definitely played brand new. They played like all of those bands. Arrest Fourth Horseman says brand new is cool. Worked for them once. That's so cool. That's awesome. Were you a roadie? Like what did you do for them? Waiting for an answer. I hope Orest answers me. I want to know what you did for brand new. I'm hanging on your every word. You're a roadie. That's cool. Living the dream. That sounds really fun. Sally says I hung out with the guys from the Sword and Church of Misery. I don't know who they are. What song of theirs would I recognize? Waiting for an answer. Let's chill. I can wait. Sally says the Sword broke up about a year ago, but go look up Cloak of Feathers. Okay. What songs should I look up by Cloak of Feathers? What's your favorite? Last concert event I went to is Stagecoach in Coachella about a year ago. 3 days of nonstop drinking with great country music. Oh yeah, that was Ulysses. Yeah, a friend of mine once suggested I go to Stagecoach, said it was really fun. I never made it out, but I would. Sometimes country music is fun. Who is your favorite that you saw at Stagecoach? Like, who are your favorite country artists? The chick named Sierra Farrell. I've never heard of her. Sierra Farrell. Okay. I'm gonna have to get that, listen to that later. Brooks and Dunn. Okay. Sally said, man, I saw so many good bands now that I'm thinking of it. Chris Stapleton. Okay. I really like Sturgill Simpson. I feel like lyrically he's one of my favorite country singers, country artists. Orest says I was just backstage for B&D. What's B&D? What's B&D? For people who are joining, we're discussing people's favorite music festivals or the bands that they saw or the bands that they worked with or bands they hung out with. Sally said the front bottoms were cool to hang out with and to smoke with. That's a funny name. Oh, B&D is Brooks and Dunn, of course. Got it. Ulysses says if you like folk country, you should check out this band I heard about a couple months ago named River Wireless. Motel 6 is a good song, in my opinion. Okay, I'm down. It really depends. Like, I can be picky. Like, um, I can be picky, but I love good suggestions. Like, I haven't quite put my finger on exactly what I like about certain types of country. Ulysses says, my bad if I'm talking a lot. These margaritas are really good. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should have a drink before I come on live stream. Maybe I'd like word vomit like more. Maybe I'd be funnier. Maybe my stand-up comedy routine would be better. Um, I was thinking about renaming this channel the Word Vomitorium. We'll see. Ulysses says they're more folky than country. I'm down. Let's chill. Um, Sally says she enjoys reading Ulysses' comments. Let's chill. You guys should hang out after live stream is over. Orest says I played shows with Biohazard, Life of Agony, Crowbar, Sick of It All instead, a bunch. That is so cool. That is very cool. What are you doing in my channel? It's like I feel like you have way more of a life than to like be watching me. Like that's super cool though. Oh, Sally says I'm not a she. My name might sound like it, but I'm a nickname. It's a nickname in the Bronx. What's it a nickname for? Like what gets you called a Sally in the Bronx? Oh, Salvatore. Orest says working on a solo album, so I have a lot of time. Yeah, I'm supposed to be working on a solo album too. I have a couple songs in the works that I need to get my ass in gear on. I'm supposed to start recording, but it's okay. Italians and a lot of entertainment people will call you Sally. Hmm. Okay. I've never heard that one. Ulysses says I'd love to hear them. As soon as they're recorded, like, and I put them up, like, I have to do some stuff. I have to create a new Bandcamp account. I have to figure out how to get my stuff on Spotify by myself. But as soon as it's up, like, I will tell you guys. But it's not gonna be ready for a little bit. Soon. Soon. But I've got to get recording and like write some more, probably 3 more songs, do an EP. Ulysses says don't go too soon. I hopped on a little late. Like I got in here early so I could hang out. Like it's 9:40. Like I'm kind of down to hang out for a while. I'm just figuring out what I'm gonna do next. I could read another story. Let me see what stories are left in the book. Oh, I never read Moby Pike Lives. I'm kind of enjoying the conversation. Sally says it's 12:40 here. Thank you for those of you from New York who are joining us. Impressed you're staying on so late. How do you feel about the early start time? I'm kind of debating if I want to get on early or late. I kind of like the 9 p.m. start time, but I can't really tell which is the better start time, like 7 or 9. I guess I'll have to experiment. Yeah, so there's another story I can read. It's called Moby Pike Lives. It's about ice fishing in Wisconsin. There's also, I also have Henry and June by Anais Nin. I don't know if it's copyrighted or not. Let me look at the year. She died in 1977. This book was published. Okay, I'm trying to figure out, like, offhand if this book is copyrighted still. Because, like, I think if the book is, like, 70 years old and no one renewed the copyright, then, like, usually it's, like, it's chill if you, like, read sections of it online, but it says copyright 1986, so it's possible this is still under copyright, which makes it risky. But I could also just say it's for educational purposes only. Oris just found my channel tonight. Thank you for joining. Always excited to have new subscribers. It's chill. I always appreciate your conversation in the comments because you guys give me so much to like blather about. I guess I'll continue with Moby Pike Lives. Did you get your margarita? It's cocktail hour. It's cocktail hour and unhinged bedtime story hour. So, let me just pull the charging cable so I can like read. Okay. Moby Pike lives. There are, in the state of Wisconsin, some 10,000 inland lakes. The lakes were created by glaciers that advanced and retreated over the lowland plains in the four major stages, modifying hills and damming valleys. In the current era, winter temperatures in the region reach 30 degrees below zero and lower. Lakes freeze over, and a hardy subculture of sport fishermen takes to the ice. Many of them are crazy. I know this because I grew up with them. A bitter north wind rolled down out of Canada and howled over the frozen surface of Lake Nagawika, a 10-minute drive from the city of Waukesha, Wisconsin. It was 15 degrees below zero, colder than even the precise scientifically determined temperature of a witch's mammary measured on a Sunday morning after church. The snow was almost 2 feet deep, and when you walk on such snow, it makes a bitter, dry sound like the crushing of a styrofoam coffee cup. The old cottage was still there where I remembered it, on a small hill overlooking the lake. It was abandoned now, fallen into bleak ruin. As a boy, I spent my summers there, fishing and swimming. My father tells me that I had no fear of the water ever, but I remember it differently. There was a weedy patch off the south side of the pier where I fished for perch and rock bass. Late one afternoon, alone on the pier, I took my father's spinning rod and spent an hour or so practicing casting. The plug, as I remember it, was about 10 inches long, painted white with dabs of red in front to resemble an injured minnow. There were three sharp treble hooks spaced just along the bottom of the plug. I was casting out to a weedy hole, about 15 feet from the pier, hitting it dead center every second or third try, when something big hit the plug and took the line halfway, out with the star drag singing. I set the hook and started horsing the monster in. He never broke water, and when I had him next to the pier, I yanked him up onto the boards like the perch I was accustomed to hooking. He was a huge, enormous, gigantic, mountainous, monolithic fish of about 15 pounds, and I screamed. My father came tearing out of the house, down a hill, and out onto the pier. He clubbed the fish, got a leather glove, and tried to work the plug out of the fish's mouth. Finally, he just cut the line and tossed it back, plug and all. It was a garfish, he tells me now, 2 decades later. A garfish is a particularly repellent trash fish with a nauseous, oily taste. I do not believe that it was a garfish because I have a very clear mental image of the fish, and the fish's mouth, and my father's gloved hand in the fish's mouth. What I see clearly are teeth, like no teeth I had ever seen. They were staggered in rough rows across the roof of the mouth, and each of them curved towards the throat, so that any living thing caught there would be impaled and driven back to the gullet. The fish, I know now, must have been a northern pike. These are found in the lakes and rivers of the northern part of the northern hemisphere. They are long, lethal-looking specimens, and the Anglo-Saxons called them pike because of their resemblance to a medieval weapon. A 20-pound pike will go over 4 feet in length. And the world's record pike weighed 46 pounds and 2 ounces. There are bigger fish in the northern lakes, sturgeon and muskie, but I am fascinated by pike. They are among the meaner freshwater fish extant, a streamlined killing machine, and the most satanic predator of the lakes. They take small muskie, cannibalize their own kind, hit crayfish, frogs, mice, small muskrats, ducklings, and any other birds small enough to swallow. There are eyewitness accounts of pike killing and ingesting small swans. I was out on the ice, alone on Nagawika, because I wanted to catch a northern pike. It would be my first through the ice, and I imagined that, in that place, I could confront those fears of 20 years ago, turning them to my own advantage, to fun. Besides, I think it's silly to be afraid of a fish. The first order of business was to drill a couple of holes. If you're after northern, you'll want to drill over about 8 feet of water near the edge of a substantial bed of weeds. Pike skirt these beds and feed on the smaller fish that take refuge there. If you don't know the lake, it is sometimes possible to obtain a hydrographic map of the bottom. Kids and muscleheads use a spud to chop the hole. This is a long metal pole with a chisel on the end, and it takes up to a half an hour to drill a hole through 3 feet of ice with one. An ice auger, especially the $30 Swedish brand that I prefer, will drill a hole in 2 minutes flat, provided you keep the blades sharp. Some Winnebago camper types, cretins and moral paraplegics, buy augers outfitted with gasoline-driven motors. After the holes were drilled, I set up my tip-ups. These are wooden cross-shaped devices with a line and reel located near the end of a long arm. They cost about $5 a piece. The crossbar is balanced across the hole, and the business end, spool and all, goes into the water. This way, the spool won't freeze over. When a fish hits the bait, a knob on the reel releases a long springy metal tip with a small red flag at the top. The tip and flag spring up, and the angler rushes over to deal with the catch. If you're after northern, as I was, you'd probably be using live bait, like 4 to 10-inch suckers. I took them just behind the dorsal fin, let them drop until they hit bottom, and then pull them up a foot or two. When a northern takes a sucker, it will usually hit it from the side. This is the conventional wisdom. Break its back and run with it. This is where you must be especially careful. The smallest tug on the line will alert the fish that something is terribly wrong, and he'll spit the bait out. If you let the fish run, it will stop, turn the disabled bait around, and swallow it head first. Always head first. Having swallowed the bait, the pike will make a second run. Watch the line. One run, a pause, the start of the second run. Here you will yank back on the line. The proper amount of force is a matter of practice. Set the hook and start pulling him in, hand over hand on the line itself. Because much of the work must be done with bare hands, baiting the hook, pulling the fish in, you're advised to have 2 pairs of gloves or mittens. One pair almost always gets wet, which was my problem that day out on Nagawika. My right hand was numb, no feeling to it at all. I decided to leave my 3 tip-ups in place and walk up to the old cottage to get out of the wind. The front door was open, hanging askew on the bottom hinge. Snow had drifted in through the broken windows, and the floorboards were warped and cracked. It was smaller than I remembered it, and I wondered who my parents had sold it to, and why the new owners had let it fall into ruin. It was spooky and sad, and colder than hell in the old place. I had stuffed my right hand into my pants, under the belt, under the thermal underwear, and was holding it to the warmth of my groin, when a frost-nipped hand warmed under these conditions. The first jolt of feeling is an intense, prickly sort of pain. It is a good pain, because you know it will soon be over, and because it means your hand will be all right. It was at this point, while I was feeling sad and spooked and hurt and happy, that I heard running steps on the porch outside. It took no reflection at all to realize that my position was not a dignified one. I was standing there, motionless, trespassing in an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere, and I had my right hand sunk deep down the front of my pants. My face, I'm sure, reflected the pleasant agony of feeling coming back into my fingers. Ulysses says, haha, whoa now. I know, it's intense already. The noise on the steps drew closer. Several people, it seemed, were charging into Old Cottage at a frantic pace. Waukesha County Sheriff's deputies, no doubt. Guns at the ready. They probably catch a lot of perverts this way. There would probably be an unpleasant headline in the Waukesha Freeman. Pervert captured in abandoned house. Parents mortified. The noise reached the front door just as I was trying to yank my hand out of my pants in the most guilty manner unimaginable. There were, however, no people at all, only 2 big dogs, both huskies, romping together in the snow. Both had icicles hanging from their snouts, and their breath came in foggy blasts. They stopped in their tracks. We regarded one another in surprise and dismay. Precisely at that point, a tip-up over my northern hole sprang erect. These days, whenever a little red flag is fluttering above the ice of a frozen lake, I think of Old Harvey. Old Harvey is your archetypal old-timey ice fisherman. When I was a kid, there weren't many people who braved the ice for fish. Those who did were guys like Hervey, a 65-year-old retired welder who watches roller derby on TV when he isn't fishing. Hervey wore maybe 6 layers of clothes. When he isn't fishing. He wore 6 layers of clothes, wino style, and caught more fish than anyone. Still does. But back in Wisconsin's dark days, before Vince Lombardi came to Green Bay, it didn't much matter because nobody tried to catch fish through the ice except a few Hervey types. They made bonfires and burned old tires and drank brandy for warmth. Decent home-loving folk considered Hervey and his ilk to be harmless masochists, rather like people who walk across hot coals or lie on a bed of nails for no particularly good reason. Old Hervey has his reasons. He always catches fish. Always. Even if the bass and pike aren't biting. Old Hervey gets a catch off his jig pole. Jigging, he calls it. In jigging, you drop a line baited with mousies or yellow waxworms into shallow, weedy water. You lie on the ice. Put your face over the hole and cover head and hole with the hood of your parka. Often as not, you'll be able to see little guys, perch and bluegill, swimming around down there. If you don't, drop in some crumbled eggshells or oatmeal for chum. These fish are very slow in winter, almost somnambulant, and they will approach the chum in a ponderous and dignified manner. Jerk the bait up and down in front of your fish. He'll likely hit it on the uptake. Some days you can spend hours on the ice and never have one red flag. And yet, on the same day, you may bag a score of foot-long perch on the jig pole, just like old Hervey. Old Hervey doesn't bother to go get his perch. Old Hervey doesn't bother to gut his perch. He cuts a fillet from each side, soaks them in milk, powders them with flour and breadcrumbs or cornmeal, deep fries the lot. The money he saves on food goes for brandy. If you are new to ice fishing, or if you don't know the lake, it's always best to seek out a Hervey. A pint of brandy helps immensely in this endeavor. And you're likely to learn where the best holes are, what the lake bottom is like, and any number of valuable tricks. The old Hervey I know does a thing with mousies. These are the larvae of the dronefly. Plump little brown fellows, about half the size of your fingernail, with a hair-like tail. On certain days, the perch will hit nothing but mousies. They will not, however, hit a black mousie. Mousies turn black when they freeze rapidly. Old Hervey keeps a dozen or so warm in his mouth, between the lower lip and teeth, like a plug of tobacco. Hervey's mousies are always happy, fat, and brown. There is another thing old Hervey does that disturbs me. He refuses to kill the big fish fresh from the lake. Instead, he tosses them out into the snow, where they freeze solid in a matter of minutes. When you take these fish home and dump them into the sink, they clatter, but as you're cleaning them, they tend to come to life and start flopping around. This blurs the distinction between life and death and makes for appropriately morbid funeral dinners. Ice fishing is no longer exclusively the sport of pensioned lushes. Somebody tried driving his car out onto the ice and watching his tip-ups in comfort. Others discovered that you could construct a small shack and tow it out onto the ice behind a car. Then all you had to do is sit in the shack, buy the cheap wood-burning stove, and drink and lie and play cards until a red flag showed. This advent of fashionable ski wear and snowmobile suits has even given ice fishing a bit of a chic look. Some hardy backpackers crate up their tip-ups and bait and jig poles on a sled and make for the more remote lakes where the fishing is best. But the majority of these new people on the ice chose to fish out of shacks clustered together, sometimes by the hundreds, on the more popular lakes like Wisconsin's massive 215-square-mile Lake Winnebago. It is a sociable scene. On weekends, entire families spend the day on the ice, and people can be seen tromping through the snow to a neighbor's shack to borrow some bologna and a cup of brandy. These people also band together to prevent vandalism to their shacks, organize fishing jamborees with prizes for the biggest catch, and elect honorary mayors of their tip-up cities. One day, on Lake Winnebago, everyone was catching 3- and 4-pound white bass. Whatever mysterious system that tells fish to bite was operative, and operative for miles in every direction. The tip-ups would spring erect, and people would come whooping out of the shanties to haul up their large flat fish. That night, the Otter Street Fishing Club gathered to celebrate at Jerry's, a bar near the waterfront in Oshkosh. The club is a service organization, and every winter they help plow a road 10 miles across the frozen lake. They also construct bridges across the vast cracks that are created when the ice shifts. Everyone knows when this happens because the crack has the quality of a sonic boom, and often it will rattle dishes in lakefront homes. When someone's car goes through the ice, the Otter Street boys are there with winches and tools to pull the vehicle up, and if necessary, save lives. The majority of the club members at Jerry's were avid fishermen in their 30s, and most of them seemed to own 3- or 4-wheel drive vehicles. The night of the white bass feeding frenzy, about 30 of the Otter Street boys got tired of their dank little bar with dead fish on the walls and decided to make a run over to the ice town of Stockbridge. It was a relatively sober caravan that left Oshkosh about 9 o'clock that night. Getting lost or stuck in the deep snow on the lake, miles from anywhere in the middle of a 20 below night, can be deadly. 5 miles out onto the flatness of the lake, with bitter wind whipping up the snow and cutting visibility, it was possible to imagine oneself alone on some godforsaken tundra well above the Arctic Circle. The serious drinking began in a waterfront bar in Stockbridge. I ordered a Heileman's Special Export, which is a local brand and the best beer made in America. It tastes a bit like Heineken, and like Heineken, it comes in a green bottle. To order one in Stockbridge, you say, "Give me a green Hornet, will ya?" Some fellows were drinking their green Hornets with a shot of schnapps, the white peppermint kind, and no other. To order this combination, you say, "Give me a green Hornet and a little white guy, will you, hey?" After a few green Hornets and little white guys, the talk turned toward fish stories. Remember when Dave and Mark speared that sturgeon, that 200-pound sturgeon? Now that's a big fish. During part of the ice fishing season on Winnebago, it is legal to spear sturgeon. Rich guys fly their plane out onto the ice, set up a shanty, black out the windows, and saw a large hole in the ice. They sit there drinking green Hornets and little white guys until a sturgeon swims by. Happily, this seldom occurs, at which time they literally harpoon it. For some reason, this strikes me as repugnant and a stupid waste of time. No matter. The proper response to "that's a big fish" is "Ain't or more emphatically, "Ain't hey?" This usage corresponds to a French "ne sais pas" and means "is it not so?" These things seem to blur over a bit after a few hours at Stockbridge, though I remember talking to a cabinet maker named Mark, a short, muscular guy with bowed legs who thought I was stupid. Anybody who fishes for Northern is stupid, and you're stupid, and I've seen 100 guys like you, and they're all stupid, and you're the stupidest of the stupid. You can get into arguments like that over fish. Mark preferred to catch a pike, which is not a pike at all. He preferred to catch a wall-eyed pike, which is not a pike at all, but a type of larger perch with strange, bulging, milky white eyes. They go 6 to 8 pounds on average, and they make for the finest eating fish of the northern lakes. Northern pike are more bony, and the flesh tends to crumble rather than flake. Some people like them, but these people are considered by others to be stupid. Mark was wearing a white sweater with 3 tiny mallards on it, winging their way across his chest. Whenever anyone has walked by us, he would jab Mark in a mallard and shout "bang." "If you're really a writer," Mark said, "which I don't believe, because you're stupid, what kind of stuff do you write?" I told him that I admired Gene Shepard, a turn-of-the-century timberman, city planner, and storyteller out of the Wisconsin North Woods. Shepard once announced that he had captured an ox-like prehistoric monster in the Big Tree country near Rhinelander. He called his find a hodag, and he displayed it, half hidden in a dark tent, at various county fairs. The hodag had 6 horns on its back, 2 blinking eyes of different colors, and it occasionally breathed fire. Scientists from the Smithsonian Institution traveled to Wisconsin to examine the wonderful hodag. They found a large slab of wood, carved in the shape of a cow, covered with oxhide, with bear claws for eyebrows, curved steel spikes for claws, and 12 bull's horns positioned along the backbone. Mark shook his head in pained dismay. "If you really are a writer," he said, "then you must write cockeyed, because you're cockeyed stupid." "Yeah, and if you really are a cabinet maker," I said, "and this is rich, I have such a way with words, you probably make cockeyed cabinets." Bang! Someone poked Mark in a mallard. Suddenly, it seemed, we were back in the trucks. The plan was to run 5 miles south, to a bar at Quinny, and to make a run off the road, on the ice. We jolted over drifts, side-slipped through the snow, and pulled in at the lights of Chuck and Sue's bar. A large room with a horseshoe-shaped bar. There was a pool table and foosball table and bait shop in the back. Mark and I continued to discuss fish relative to intelligence. This is no new subject, actually. Isaac Walton, in The Complete Angler, praised the carp. Terrific fish, as far as he was concerned. Great fighter, good eating, hell of a all-around fish. In 1879, the Wisconsin State Fish Commission stocked lakes and streams with carp. They turned out to be prodigious breeders. The lakes are lousy with them. You bait a line with anything that stinks, drop it off of a foot of the bottom anywhere, and you've got a carp. They like to stay at the bottom, and bringing them up is as much fun as hooking an old galosh. They are what they eat, and they eat garbage and fish shit. Carp also like to flop around in the muck, roiling up the lake and spoiling the fishing. They take weeds off at the root, and since the little fish need the protection of the weeds and the nourishment they provide, and since bigger fish need those little fish, pretty soon there is nothing but carp in the lake. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources sometimes kills all the fish in the lake, just to get rid of all the carp. Then they restock the lake with good fish, bass and crappie, and bluegill and perch and pike and muskie. No carp. I am told that in England, the descendants of Isaac Walton still fish for carp, as if it were a noble thing. The English, however, are known to keep bulldogs, ugly, useless beasts, given to slobber and involuntary flatulence in their later years. In matters of taste, there can be no disputes. De guptas non disputandum, ain't a hay. This is the case I put to Mark, the cockeyed cabinet baker, and by a tortuous twist of logic, I attempted to identify him with carp fanciers. The argument was coming to a bitter head when someone asked if we wanted to join the Minnow Drinking Club. I am now a member of this organization. I have a card signed by Chuck Lissow, who identified as the Imperial Minnow, which states that I am a member in good standing and will be as long as I continue to drink my minnow annually. Here is what you can do to earn such a card. The bartender pours you a 7-ounce glass of beer. He then goes to the bait shop in the back and scoops a 3-inch minnow out of the bait tank. This minnow he places in your beer. You then drink the beer rapidly, and the live minnow as well. Mark drank his minnow first, then demanded a beer and a minnow for me. Anxious to prove my intelligence, I picked up the beer and stared at the minnow. It was flopping around in the narrow confines of the bottom of the glass. I can tell you that there is no joy in chugging a beer with a minnow in it. It took me 2 tries to get it down. I erred in my original approach. Certainly no one would try to swallow a 3-inch minnow sideways, but it is equally incorrect to attempt to down one tail first. They tend to want to swim right back up. This is why your northern pike breaks its prey's back and turns him head first before swallowing him. Brutal. Most of the Otter Street boys downed their minnows on the first attempt, but one fellow, a big, mean-looking giant of a man, in worn farmer clothes, couldn't keep either the minnow or his dinner down. There was a big to-do made of this. You puked your minnow. So I puked it. Nobody should eat a live thing. It ain't right. It's sick. You puked your minnow. You puked your minnow. Mark and I were reconciled. Neither of us had puked his minnow, in an obvious and certain measure of our intelligence. We played pool, then found ourselves back in the trucks, swerving and sliding out over the lake towards Oshkosh. We were downing green hornets at a pretty furious pace, stopping now and again to stand out in the barren, wind-swept night and yellow the snow. Yanking my hand out of my pants, I ran toward the door, scattering the 2 huskies, and sprinted down the hill to the tip-up flag, which was swaying in the wind over my northern hole on Lake Nagawika. Very gently, I pulled the tip-up out of the hole. Nothing. Suddenly the line began running out at a furious pace. And this, I knew, had to be the beginning of the second run. I pulled back on the line. The force at the other end simply pulled it from my hand. The tip-up itself slid rapidly over the snow and wedged itself sidewise into the hole. Then, a split second later, the entire device shuddered, and a crack shot up the side of the pole. The fish had taken all the line and set the hook itself. I grabbed the tip-up and pulled at the line, finally getting some slack. The fish was coming back, and I pulled the line in by the yard. When he took it out again, I held tight with both hands. It burned and cut as the fish ran. But now he was beginning to tire. We worked that way, man and fish, for over half an hour, and the line was frozen red with my blood. I was alone, and my hands were coated with ice. The fish, I realized, in one awful moment, could kill me. But now I had him within feet of the hole. He shot by once, twice, 3 times. A huge dark shadow, 6, maybe 7 feet long. He was diving deep and circling, trying to cut the line on the jagged edge of the bottom of the hole. I gave him line and worked him back. There was a moment when he was only a foot below the ice, his massive head just below the hole. Quickly I twisted the line around my right hand, which I held to my chest, and fell back onto the snow, pulling the fish up with the whole of my weight. This next happened in an instant, but the particulars are immensely vivid in my mind's eye. The northern was a quarter of the way out, wedged tight into the sides of the 8-inch hole by the very bulk of his body. The head was 8 inch was the head was above the ice to the gill line, and it was green. Green in the way that only primitive things can be, and there were large white blotches at the back of the head, as if the fish were unimaginably old. My line had snapped, and there was nothing more I could do. The wind was strong, and already ice had begun to form on the fish. I moved closer, tired and hurt, and this moment lives with me. A northern pike has a long, flattened mouth, and the eyes are set close together on a ridge resembling a brow. It is a fish that can look you directly in the eye. What I saw there was a hatred more palpable than time itself. But what caused me to stagger all at once and weak in the knees was the realization that there was intelligence in those cold green eyes, that the evil of its hatred was focused on me, that the fish recognized me. The great mouth gaped open, and there was a sound, not loud, but high-pitched and piercing, like a siren cranking up to wail. The fish jerked once, twice, and then slid slowly, very slowly, back into the hole. The siren shifted in pitch, higher now, triumphant. In that last split second, I saw deep into the fish's mouth, past the rows of inward curving teeth, to something that frightened me more than I care to think about. It was an old 10-inch plug. There was still some white on the body of the plug, and a speck of red at the top. 3 treble hooks were spaced along the bottom. This is a true fish story, and I dedicate it respectfully to the memory of Jean Shepherd. Isn't that a wild story? Isn't that crazy? The fish that he caught when he was a kid ended up being a giant fish that he caught again later and escaped from him again. That is wild. And it recognized him. Yeah, I know. I love the story. Yeah. What time is it, guys? It's about 10. I like that story. Yeah. How are we feeling? What's new? I'm gonna take another bite of my ube ensamada. Oh, I got a bite with a ton of ube. It was the best bite I've had all night. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. I guess like maybe it's time to wind down. What's something good that happened to you guys today? I rested a lot today because I had that show yesterday and I was up late last night. But I feel like this live stream is like the good thing that happened to me today. Hey, how's it going? I'm asking people what's one good thing that happened to them today. I chilled today. I ate a really good dinner. I did some book promotion. That's that's about it. I did a lot of relaxing today. I did some journaling. Positive Troll says my daughter did her first freestyle dance and loved how proud I was. That's amazing. That's so cool. How old is your daughter? Let's see what else good happened today. Ulysses ran 4 miles, hung out with younger siblings, had the house to myself, so it's been pretty good. Thinking of going golfing tomorrow. That sounds very nice. Positive Troll, she says your daughter is 5, autism not keeping her down. That is amazing. That is so cool. Like, harness those strengths. That is amazing. I love that. I'm gonna go dance tomorrow. There's an event I heard about. It's kind of it's not exactly a secret event, but like there's like a rock show where it's like jammy and there's a lot of dancing, and I'm gonna go check it out. I've never been before. Um, I'm really excited about that. Um, and then I'm gonna be house sitting tomorrow, and I'm probably gonna live stream from the house that I'm house sitting at. There's some cool friends there. Um, so it's been very chill. Yeah. Yeah, that's my life. Where's the maybe I'll do we could do some more pendulum, I feel like. Like pendulum with some like affirmations is kind of what I'm in the mood for. If I can find my necklace. Everything is a mess because I'm moving. Everything is a mess. Maybe I don't need the necklace. How much did you focus on your joy today? Did you take at least an hour to do something that like really makes you happy? If you have a goal in this life, what is it? Like, did you take a step toward that goal today? Lately, I've been thinking about like, what is the kind of life that I really want to live? And like, what does that look like? What are the feelings that I want to feel? What are the things that I want to do? And sometimes I realize, like, maybe that's different than what I used to think. Because, like, I used to think, like, money is what makes the world go round, and it totally does. But lately, I've been seeing how you can accomplish things without as much money as you think. And that blows my mind a little bit. Um, you definitely need money, but sometimes you can achieve what you want with, how do I say it? Way fewer resources. Like, I don't know how to express this without like Like, if my goal in life is to travel, um, like, sometimes you can travel and like make money along the way. And like, what I'm noticing, like, I've been playing guitar at the beach and I can make cash doing that. And like, I can also, like, as I'm going places, like, I can play in coffee shops or play for tips in other places. And it can fund like really cheap travel to go other places. And I'm finding that if I like work really hard on the things that bring me joy, that that can like put the wind in my sails, you know? And like that's really weird for me. I've never been a go with the flow person. I've always been like I'm going to grind, I'm going to work really hard and like make a ton of money and like then I can do whatever I want. But like I've also been noticing that like if you catch the wind in your sails, then you can harness a whole bunch of outside energy that can pull you along in the direction you want to go. And that's like really new to me. Um, and the question is, how do you harness the energy outside of you to like bring you where you want to go? That's very new to me. So, yeah, whatever way people decide to do that is like, I'm noticing how people are doing that in lots of different ways. And it's exciting to see the non-conventional life paths that people have chosen and how it's working out for them. I see people doing things differently than me, and like that works great for them. I know some people that like work as like home caretakers and then they have time to pursue their creative pursuits. That is super cool. Like everybody has to find out like what, they can do to like survive in like some kind of bartering or trade or gifting economy. Sashikant says, "Are you not reading comments?" I am. I totally am. I'm just word vomiting. This is the word vomitorium. Welcome to the word vomitorium. Workaway program. Honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just experimenting. And like sometimes I stumble upon things that work and Ulysses says you don't realize how cool and smart you are. I mean, I think I'm all right, but like I don't know, it doesn't do much good to sit around dwelling on that? Sally says my friend goes to Madagascar and eats lobster fried rice and surfs all day. That sounds incredible. That's like such a killer life. Good for them. Oris says I just go. If you plan too much, you'll waste a lot of time. You'll have too many expectations. I've slept in my car on people's couches, but man, I have some great stories. Yeah, that's what I've heard from some people. They just kind of go with the flow and they end up in some cool places. I don't know how, like, sometimes I wonder if you're very go with the flow like that, how do you plan your finances? A lot of people don't, and apparently it just like works out somehow. Sally says her friend works on a farm over there on a workaway program for 6 months. Sounds cool. I'm glad he's found something that works for him. Orist says life is a journey, enjoy the stroll. You guys should be running a YouTube channel. That's what I've heard. Like, life is a journey. You're supposed to enjoy the journey. So, like, why did I spend so many years of my life doing paperwork? If life is about the journey and you're supposed to spend your time doing what you want and fuck the rest, it's hard to justify doing paperwork for me, in my opinion. So, like, if every day, if you think about time as your most limited resource, then, like, what would you spend your time doing? And when I think about it that way, it's really hard to justify doing stuff I don't enjoy. Yeah. Because time is our most limited resource. If you think about it, you only get like, okay, if you live to be like the oldest person on earth, then you only get about 110 years. And like, that's really pushing it. Like, most people, like, if you live a rough life, you're only going to get 60 years. And I'm over halfway to that. So, like, Ulysses says we're complex creatures, Tingle. There's a lot more than you can see. Oh, I know that. But, like, what's your point, though? Of course, we're complex creatures. But that doesn't change the fact that we get, on average, like 80 years on Earth, you know? And if you only get 80 years on Earth, what do you want to spend your time doing? Orist says, because you're told so that so someone else's journey is easier. Well, yeah, some people have hard journeys, some people have easy journeys. It all depends on like what you want to do or experience. Like, different life goals have different like job requirements, I guess. But like, I think hard and easy is also a perspective. Like, you can approach hard situations with ease, and you can approach easy situations with like a mindset that makes things harder than they are. And I don't know, like, I saw a thing today that's like some people leave relationships doing the exact same thing they've always done, and they just wait for someone who will put up with it. And then some people leave relationships with a whole new game plan and like change everything that they've done. And I realized, like, so I used to leave relationships and come up with a whole new game plan of like, okay, I'm never doing this again, I'm never doing that again. And I realized like it's so stressful trying to like change your behavior to fit like trying to accommodate like someone else's needs. And I'm tired of doing that. And if I only focused on myself, like what do I want out of life? Because like I feel like a lot of women are socialized growing up that like, oh, you have to like make the other person happy and you have to like do what you think is best for them, and like you're conditioned that like to love someone means you have to sacrifice yourself, and like that's so self-destructive. Like why do we do that? And I feel like I've wasted so much of my life doing that. And if I really think about like this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like why I don't read between the lines, because it makes me miserable. I hate it. I don't like reading between the lines. It's such a waste of energy. And if I really do what's best for me, like why would I waste my time doing that? Because like whenever I'm trying to do what I think is best for someone else, like when I do it and it works, in the end, like 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line, I'll end up miserable and the relationship ends. And if I don't do it, like people usually think I'm like selfish or whatever. So like no matter what I do, I'm boned. So like why bother? I don't know. Um I don't know. I feel like things will work themselves out eventually, but like I know I'm not really boned. It's just for a long time, like it kind of felt that way. Like when you live your life trying to be selfless for a long period of time, that's what people expect of you. So when you start living like what's in your own best interest, like everyone starts to hate you because you're doing things differently. Um, so like that's a rough transition when you finally start like living for yourself, then like um it can cause like such a dramatic shift that your life is going to completely change, but eventually like you come back from it. It just takes a long time and you have to like be around new people. um but that's something I think a lot about. Like it's ultimately like wouldn't we all be happiest if we worried about ourselves, and then the people who gravitated toward you are people who are chill with the way that everyone is worrying about themselves. Like you don't have to be constantly worried about someone else's well-being. And it's like when I finally started just worrying about myself, my brain was like so much happier, so much less stressed. I dropped like 30 pounds. Everything became so much easier. Like I had brain space to do what I cared about because I didn't have to be responsible for everyone else all the time. And that's like such a crazy concept to even think about. Why did I waste so much of my life, you know? Ulysses says, what does it matter? People hate some of the most intellectually gifted people for being themselves. I know. Um, that is kind of a bummer. Like, why can't we just let people be themselves? Like, I was reading about Sally says experience isn't a waste. I know it's not, but like sometimes it feels like a waste of time. Um, but I was reading there's this book about a Filipino revolutionary named Jose Rizal, and he was like a really intelligent person in the Philippines in like I think it was like the 1800s or the early 1900s, and they ended up like arresting him and exiling him because he wanted to fix a bunch of the problems in the Philippines, like with corruption. And it's like, why does that happen to everybody? Like, if anyone is trying to fix any problems or suggest anything is wrong with the status quo, and they end up like getting rid of them, like how much does that suck? I might actually read his books because none of them are copyrighted. I would read them on stream. I need to get a hold of them though. But those are some cool books. He's kind of like the Che Guevara of the Philippines. So like, I hope I don't get banned from YouTube for not being conservative enough or whatever. But he was cool. Ulysses says, "Do you think that you care about other people more than yourself? Because from my experience and time spent here, I realize that no matter what you tell people and want for them, some will stay the same. At some point, I gave up caring about people more than myself. It's not sustainable, I think. Like I wish that I was selfless and caring like that, but like I've realized that like just managing my own like activities and managing my own mental health makes it impossible to care about other people more than myself. So like I don't know, like I've had my moments where I've really tried to continue to care about other people as much or more than myself, but it's like it has not been sustainable. Um yeah. I don't know. I haven't had like a close friendship or relationship in a while that's like I've been able to like actually care about or care for someone where it doesn't feel like destructive to me to do it. Or it says 85% of people want to follow, 10% want to lead, and 5% really know what's going on, and that 10% will stop at nothing to silence the 5%. I know, right? It's kind of it's kind of scary how much like the people who know what's up in society often get silenced by the people who don't want you to realize what's going on. But I don't know, I guess it's up to everyone to figure that out for themselves. I don't know. Someone says to kill the messenger. Sally says to kill the messenger. I know it's a little scary. Like, there are people who want to share like really good, legitimate information that often get like silenced. Anyway, I feel like I'm running out of stuff to talk about. But I guess my takeaway is I hope you're spending your time doing what you want to do because isn't that what matters in life, you know? Don't go. What are we going to talk about? What's on your mind? It's like Mark asked, would you want a relationship? It would have to be right, you know? Sally says, let's talk about how much paper straws suck. I think we can all agree that paper straws are like such a bad idea. I mean, like, we have compostable plastic. Like, why can't we just use that? They're so much better. Like, there's so many better ways to solve our problems. Like, I don't know. Oris says, hope you had as much fun as I did. I truly enjoy your content. You're so sweet. I love that you guys hang out. Every day I'm figuring out like what I'm gonna do with this channel, and I don't know. It's just cool to have people to talk to, and like you come hang out on stream. I'm gonna figure out what to do with this channel eventually. I'm just like figuring myself out. Ulysses says, "What are your plans for the time that's coming? Will you be staying in San Diego?" I'm not entirely sure yet. Just taking it day by day. I don't really I don't really know what's up. Um, I might get a storage unit. I might like crash with a friend. I might go back to LA. I don't really know yet. I'm just trying to get through the next couple days. Um, I don't really want to release that info. Yeah, I've thought about going back to LA to be with my family, but like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna see what happens in the next couple days. I feel like that might illuminate some things, like what decisions I should make. Um, that's kind of you. I'm sure people care, even if like they never say it, but like it's kind of exhausting also. Like if you never say it, like what's the point of your relationship, I guess. So like I don't know, it just feels weird to me. Like no offense, but my favorite thing about LA is leaving it. I don't know. My favorite thing about LA is like I go visit my family and they're like my great aunts are like the most considerate people ever. Like I go visit and they like make sure that I'm not hungry and like they're just so sweet. They'll make you a cappuccino your favorite way. They'll like cook your eggs for you your favorite way. They'll like I don't know, dote over you. It's like the sweetest thing in the whole world. Like nobody does that. So like there's a lot of cool stuff in LA. I've been to some really cool like warehouse shows. I've seen some really cool bands. Like LA is vibrant and beautiful if you know where to go, but it's just hellish to drive through, and that is the truth. Like it's a mess. If you're going anywhere in rush hour, like it's gonna take you 2 hours to get like 20 miles. It's a mess. And it's hot and it's filled with pavement and like, but that's not all of LA. There's some really cool stuff going on. You're not too far from LA. Where are you? Ulysses, if you want to message me on Facebook, you can find me. Like, you can follow me on Facebook. If you shoot me a message, like, we can always talk off of live stream. Like, we can talk like people. But oh yeah, Fontana. I drove through Fontana. Dropped a friend off there on the way to LA. Yeah, LA is pretty plasticky. It's like concrete wasteland, basically, unless you know where to go. It's like big box store wasteland. Like there's nothing but Walmarts and Targets and like chain restaurants and like yeah, LA is like it's a mess. It's a corporate wasteland. But there's also a lot of culture there too. So Yeah. I mean, there's beautiful things about every city. Oh yeah, if you guys want to find me on Instagram, my username is mad_scientician. And scientician is spelled SCIENTICIAN. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, shoot me a message. Just tell me it's Ulysses from the live stream, and I'll chat with you. So, like, yeah, scientician with an A, SCIENTICIAN. So you're really close. And there's a picture of me with no glasses. I'm wearing like a white turtleneck. Yeah, that one, scientician, second one. Perfect. And when I post the video, I'll also post my band's Bandcamp, and I'll post like other stuff you can check out. But okay, guys. Ulysses, make sure you find me on Instagram. I'll wait if you want. But yeah, I'm gonna go soon. Cool. Okay, you guys. I'm gonna get going. And Ulysses, I didn't see your follow, but that's okay. Maybe it'll take a minute to come up. Oh, there you are. Okay, cool. I'm gonna get going, you guys. It's been a good night. I will talk to you soon, maybe tomorrow, from my house sitting house. We will have a good time. Maybe I will pull out some furry friends to hang out with us because there's a lot of animals at this place and they're pretty cool. Or like we could maybe do like there's a leopard gecko I could feed. So I think that'll be pretty cool for live stream. Yeah. I will keep my head up. I know life is all right, but I'll talk to you guys soon. I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you for joining me.